Okay, so just to be clear, this is what you really want, right?
Learn to live together because they must. As a result, any act of violence is strictly forbidden and will be dealt with swiftly.
Or maybe this? Or how about this? Because guess what? That's all you got. That's everything there was before this. So, ruin the Gorn? No. If anything, they just defined the Gorn because the Gorn weren't defined in the first place.
Hate me. Are you on your way? Hate me. Are you on your way? I ain't got that people pleasing gene. I want big scheming crocodile with too much style. So hate me. Are you calling yet? It's okay when I stand in as your pet. You don't like that I do what I want at any time. I'm only mine. I shine. It's okay. It's okay. People stare at what I wear, get upset when I gain weight. Lame as trust, fake body aches, pass up insincere excuses. I'll run the tracks till I'm blind. Talk about me. Yeah, when you wine and dine. Complicated sound, no vibe at all. She's kinda small and sagging tits. I heard she gotta get in or throw shade. It's okay. People stare at what I wear, get upset when I gain weight. Nameless trust, fake body aches, pass up insincere excuses. What am I gonna do with those? Pass up insincere excuses. Oh, I can't sit here and pretend that it's fine in the end. No, my life is for me. Gotta live for me. Oh, I can't sit here and pretend I did that way before. I can't ignore. People stare at what I wear, get upset when I gain weight. Nameless trust, fake body aches, pass up insincere excuses. What am I gonna do with those? Say, what am I gonna do with those insincere excuses? Insincere excuses. Insincere excuses. Hate me.
Tonight's special edition of Nerdfights is brought to you by the Dork Knight Death Clock. Get your Dork Knight Death Clock soon, because soon you won't need one, if you know what I mean. And also by these guys, because I guess for some reason they want to support Salty. Those sons of bitch.
Hey guys, so I apologize that Danny is not here. He is having some issues, I will tell you. So first of all, anybody out there that is a believer, I would ask you to keep Danny in your prayers. The death clock thing is a joke, and Danny actually said, hey, joke about it, because he is a little stressed out about it. But he had a biopsy today because he has a growth on his forehead that the doctors are actually concerned about. So, but he's not going to get the results for like 2 weeks. And so, he's kind of stressed out about that. And that's actually the reason he's not here right now. So hopefully he'll be able to join us later, but I don't know if he will or not, to be frank. Obviously, if you got the name of tonight's live stream, I do want to address the fact that there's been so much negativity floating around about mainly Strange New Worlds, but Star Trek in general over the last, well, obviously ever since 2009, but with all of New Trek, there's been very, very little positive talk about it, with the notable exception of the third season of Star Trek Picard, which baffles me, to be honest, because I think that was some of the worst of the New Trek, which we can get into. But I think just because you dangle some fruit in front of somebody, all of a sudden they think, ooh, that's pretty. And, they forget about all the problems with it. And it's quite frankly, it disturbs me because not because, look, if you don't like it, I get it. That's perfectly okay. As far as I've always said, entertainment is completely subjective. If it's something that you do not enjoy, that is perfectly within your right. And, don't watch it. Don't enjoy it. That's your purview. And if you think that there are things that can be improved, absolutely speak out about it. But it's the vitriol and the hatred that's been directed at it that really bothers me. And yes, Ariel, the camera kind of automatically follows me when I move around. So sorry if it does that a little bit when if I shift around, because I do have to move around a little bit. The MS makes it so that if I stay still too long, it really hurts a lot. So I try not to make it too obvious, but I have to move a little bit in order to keep the pain somewhat under control. So I apologize for that. But I want to spend some time addressing that, and I do want to talk to some of you guys about that, because I know some of you have been very, very vocal with some of the negativity, and don't get me wrong, some of you guys I consider friends, and I have a lot of respect for, like Professor Brainy Specs. I saw you in the chat a little while ago. I have nothing but respect for you, and I hope that you'd be willing to talk to me. You always decline to come up on the panel, and I wish you would. I really do. I want to have a real conversation with you, not just responding to chat. And I mean a conversation. I don't mean a yell fest or anything like that. I mean, like, let's talk about this, if you're willing. The problem is that a lot of the time what happens is we if we assert our position strongly, which I tend to do, I know. Sometimes you take it offense to it, and I don't mean to be like, I know sometimes you think I'm being condescending just because I assert myself in a strong, positive manner, and I don't mean to sound condescending. I really, really, really don't. But I do have strong, passionate feelings, but I try not to be personal. I don't attack you. I only attack the ideas. And it's the same. And this is where I have a problem with what a lot of people say, because a lot of people are not attacking Star Trek, they're attacking Alex Kurtzman. And by the way, thank you so much, T. Stoney, with back-to-back $20 super chat. So let me get right into it because, man, you guys pull me into the chat. So I will get right to the chat because obviously you don't want to listen to my diatribe anymore. So T says it's because Kurt's Trek era blows. How, why, what degree varies, but it's horrible except for Picard season 3. Well, that's what a lot of people say. But T, I need, and I know this is difficult in chat, and that's why I'm going to invite people to come up if you're willing, but only if you're willing to discuss your negative feelings about Trek. I don't want people that come up and just, praise Strange New Worlds, because I'll do that. I don't need help defending Strange New Worlds. And if Danny comes up, he'll probably help me with that. But I do want to talk about this stuff, and Picard season 3 is something I would like to talk about. And with the back-to-back super chat says, and I want to talk, and you want to talk about fruit dangling. Every Kurt's Trek show has that, but most of them are lousy, and you've no problem venting your spleen at Picard season 3. Allow us to do the same. Rock on. Well, thank you. First of all, T, thank you. And I appreciate the fact that we can disagree and yet you support my channel. That is a testament to the fact that we have a great community of people here, because, we can respect each other even though we can disagree. But let me say this. As far as look, it's one. I'm not sure what you think that all the Kurt's Trek has dangling fruit. I mean, if we're talking about member berries, like, because that's what usually people think of. Look, there's the occasional member, like what we talked about. There was one major member berry in the last episode of Strange New Worlds, and that's the fact that we saw the name Edith Keeler, or actually just Dr. Keeler, in the background of one shot in Strange New Worlds, Tomorrow. That's a member berry that was thrown in there, and it's really more, and as Jason argued, it was really more of an Easter egg, because you had to look for it, because it wasn't like thrown in your face. It was in the background behind a bunch of stuff and out of focus. But in Picard season 3, it was all just shoved in your face. The Eagle Moss ships, and the Genesis device, and Captain Kirk's bones, and they just throw everything they could possibly throw at you, just to throw it at you with no real reason for it. There was no reason to have all this stuff in there. Original series phasers. Why? There was no reason to have this stuff in there except to have member berries. Why was the Titan an original era ship? Well, the reason was because they already had the design. But they also already had the design for the Enterprise F. They could have pulled another ship from Star Trek Online, since they were lazy enough. I mean, first of all, I think it was crap to pull starships from a video game into the actual Star Trek universe, but they did. Hey, whatever. And now people are going to say, "Oh, Star Trek Online is canon." You know, people are going to start having that conversation again. No, just the Enterprise F is. But the if they're going to be lazy enough to pull these ships in from Star Trek Online, then just pull in another one for the Titan. You don't need a freaking ship from the TMP era. It was so out of place. And then you had the Intrepid, another ship from the TMP era. Because apparently they don't know how to design new ships anymore. Which makes zero sense in the 25th century. It really doesn't make much sense. To me, anyway. Maybe it does to you. Anyway, if anybody's willing to come on and discuss it with me, yes, I know I can be a blowhard. Yes, I know that, you know, some people think I'm just a jerk. But if you're willing to come on and talk to this blowhard, then I am hoping that some of you are going to talk to me. So here is the link. And we'll pin that up in the chat. And of course, I won't be once we have people come on, I obviously won't be able to read the chat, but I will you know, get to any super chats that come up, and I'll try to skim the chat as I can, but it's difficult once when we get a conversation going. And BK says, I love the salty rants. Well, thank you, BK. And we got Darren and Mercy right off the bat. Hey guys.
Hey, Nervo left you as a tip.
No, did he? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring up my dashboard. Let me get that real quick.
Oh, wait a minute, I can't hear you. 1 second.
And hey, Darren, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good to see you.
Good. Can't hear you, Darren. I don't know if you said anything.
Yeah, I said I'm doing good.
Okay. You're just being uncharacteristically quiet. Normal, the princess says, my problem is they don't need to rewrite legacy characters or redo the timeline. Get back to some real sci-fi and great characters. Well,
good sci-fi, hard sci, like good, like
they. You know what? First of all, let me say this, and just to set the record straight, Star Trek has never been hard sci-fi.
Yeah, I know, but they have concepts that you can turn the hard sci-fi into soft science fiction. You know what I mean? Like you can use hard science fiction and then kind of adapt it to like this kind of spacey, fun show. You know, that's what they've always done.
I don't see names in this thing.
The guy the names up. Let's see. I turn the names off when we do the Nerdfights show, so bear with me here.
But yeah, that's what I think. I think, or Normal thinks that is that you can use ideas from hard science fiction and then make them into Star Trek ideas. That's what they've always been good at. You know, you can have ideas like the inner light, where a probe is actually a signal from the past. You know, you can get into really hard sci-fi concepts in a soft science fiction setting.
Mercer, the way I see it is that hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi are not genres, but more like ingredients. You build like a soup, you put like some hard sci-fi in and some soft sci-fi in, and you make like a mixture.
Yeah, exactly. Like pepper and salt.
Hey guys, hey guys. I want to cut in real quick because last Saturday I went to a Star Trek convention where it was a Comic-Con convention, and as you can see in my picture, and I met Gates McFadden, and we did have Q&A. We talked about all this stuff. We talked about, especially we talked last week, on how Star Trek is, the future of Star Trek. I couldn't film it because they wouldn't allow us to film it because she did a little blasting of certain kind of people, especially Rick Berman. But she talked about all this right here. And how the future Star Trek is going to be. And actually, a little group, we talked about last week that LG was talking about the Star Trek director or creator needs to be a Star Trek fan. She said yes and no, but she did say did he know something about Star Trek? Did he study Star Trek? Watch the movies like that and ask questions. and she said, and she talked about how the series, well, Picard and Discovery, they didn't talk about anything. Did not talk to people who know Star Trek. Everything we talk about, she actually agree on some, especially you, Salty. She agree a lot of things what you talking about. But she, she said they heard you. They know they're scared. They ran on eggshells. They worry about, of course, money. The key thing is money. It's all about money. They worry about it will legacy. She did talk about live out legacy, but she didn't say it. She said no. You're not sure about the green light because they worry about you guys, and they know they screwed up. Discovery and all that stuff. They know about all that.
I know that they're worried because that's why Prodigy was canceled.
Yeah,
Discovery was
that
canceled.
too. We talked about.
They're looking at they've retooled. They've retooled Discovery a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Strange New Worlds. I really, if you look at and I'm sorry, I will say Picard season 3 is definitely an improvement from season 1 and 2.
She did talk about it.
As much as I dissed Picard season 3, it is the best of the 3 seasons of Picard by a mile. Okay,
yeah.
I'm not saying it's absolute dumpster fire material, but it is.
It is.
I will say this:
it is better.
Huh?
It is better, but it is still dumpster fire material.
Here's my problem: is that it's insidiously, it's dangerous.
Yeah,
because the problem with Picard season 3 is all the positivity directed at that and the negativity being shoved at Strange New Worlds will make it so that they'll start thinking that's what we want is just memberberry soup. And honestly, if that's what Star Trek became, I'll get bored with that real quick.
Yeah, but what if neither Picard season 3 nor Strange New Worlds was what anybody wants? Because Strange New Worlds, that's just like it's like a skit. It's like these glossy sets and people pop up like in Saturday Night Live. Oh, I have a one-liner to say. Oh, I have a one-liner to say. These really pretty people. Oh, I have a one-liner to say. Hey.
I know what you're saying there, John, like where everybody has to have a line in every episode. Hey, we got to make sure, hey, we have Uhura hasn't had a line yet, so we better make sure that somebody comes onto the bridge and asks Uhura a question. And I don't like that either. I think that, there are episodes, and this is where, when if you listen to Ronald D. Moore's podcast when he was writing Battlestar Galactica, he let the story decide what happens. So if the story says this episode is not going to include this character, then that character just isn't in that episode. That's just the way it works. So if you have a story that doesn't include Uhura doesn't get to be in the episode. Well, maybe she'll be sitting at her station when you're filming scenes on the bridge, but she doesn't get any lines that episode. It just works that way.
Well, the thing that bothers me, about Strange New Worlds is that classic Star Trek, like if we go for like TOS, TNG, DS9, no matter how silly the special effects look or how silly the aliens look, those shows took themselves really seriously. Like they really put a lot of effort into like serious and Strange New Worlds. It seems so comedic. It always looks like not like that skit. Like I said in the chat, that skit on the Voyager set with Kate Mulgrew and the Frasier cast.
I hadn't seen that skit.
That was funny. That was from the 30th anniversary presentation. That was available on YouTube.
Yeah,
30th anniversary show.
Sophie, you got off topic. You got to chat. You got to.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. And yes, BK Dan. I gotta get my alert thing up. Let me launch it. I had to reboot my computer, and so I didn't launch everything because I was in a hurry to get the show started. Says off-topic announcement: Alan Arkin dead of Argo from 2012, dead at 89. 89. Wow, that's a good life. So, not a tragedy, but sad.
You're serious?
Speaking on
rest in peace, Alan Arkin.
Speaking on Ron Moore, she did talk about Ron Moore, that how they lost Ron Moore when we quit Star Trek and when these kids ran. She said she talked about a story how the powers be had a big meeting and kind of found out how in the hell this guy used to work here, ended up doing Biostar and arranging up the screen, and he worked here and we're trying who's blame. She went off on a lot of stuff on Rick Berman. She said that was the hardest thing they couldn't believe, that this guy would be here working here and got a #1 show, when it came out a couple years ago, Biostar Collector, and how you work it, and she talked about it. She talked about the writing. It had to, like we always talk about how the writing is very important on the series, and how they gave how Rick Berman limited that writing. They couldn't go off, and when Gene died, it was go out of limits, but he kept that that limitation. She talked about that. She talked about how she got fired and hired, but she was real serious about that. The writing is the key thing in the series, and some people just don't know how to write these sci-fi shows, and they don't know how to understand it. But,
well, and that's where I think Strange New Worlds, I think their biggest weakness is that they need to get real sci-fi writers.
Yeah.
Because I think the show, I think they're genuinely trying to emulate the original series. I think they're doing a better job than any other modern Trek. But I do think that they need some genuine sci-fi writers to step into the writer's room.
Yeah, the big problem is that it's not smart enough, because Star Trek actually used to be smart.
Yeah,
I think the show is not dumb, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not Discovery, but it's
it's not Discovery dumb, but
it doesn't make you really think about the nature of the universe. Or
there's only a couple of episodes that are thought provoking, like the one with the kid that's hooked into the machine.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, that one. That one made
episode
me think.
too. What was the second episode where they had to sing to get out? That was a pretty good episode.
They have a couple of good concept episodes, but the problem is
very
that
basic level.
They also have some episodes that are not great concepts, but they are very well produced. They're well acted. The characters are well done,
and the bridge set looks great. The bridge looks great.
Yeah, and so the character part they've got nailed. I think I love Pike. I love the crew, especially with this last episode. Absolutely love La'an. And I'm actually growing on this variant of Kirk. And so, which I didn't think I would ever say, because I hated him at the end of last season.
The one thing that I liked in terms of smart, I didn't watch the Nerdfights episode on it, was the Prodigy episode, Time Amok, where they were all stuck in different speeds of time.
That episode of Prodigy was probably one of my favorites, as far as being it felt like an episode of Voyager.
That was like a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
Hold on. This second season, definitely we have a problem that's already arisen in terms of the pattern that's been established. Every single episode, all three of them, have relied on a recombination of things we've already seen in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Spock stealing the Enterprise. He's already done that twice. In the second one, a Starfleet officer on trial because augments aren't supposed to be in Starfleet. We've already seen that on Deep Space Nine. This last one combined everything from City on the Edge of Forever to Carpenter Street to several Voyager episodes, and it means one of two things to me. Either they don't mean this show for us, the people who already are familiar with Star Trek. They're trying to cultivate new watchers who haven't seen those episodes, and therefore will find these concepts new when they watch Strange New Worlds, or they are either unaware of the that it's
they don't know.
I refuse to believe that they don't know, because there's too many callbacks to those episodes.
I don't think they don't know. I think the people that say, "Oh, they're ignorant," I think are
no. I'm not gonna sit here and say that when I'm sitting here in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and they're in California, cooking this stuff up.
Well, I would say this, Darren, is that anybody that tries to say these guys have never watched Star Trek, I'm sorry, but if they don't know anything about Star Trek, they wouldn't have put Dr. Keeler in the background.
Yeah, they know enough to be able to do what they're doing, but they don't know that that when you have you reveal that Spock stole the Enterprise before Menagerie and before Amok Time and all these other instances where he already had that if you're trying to add an entry to a continuity, that weakens those other stories retroactively. Well, because they'll see what it's like. They're looking at Spock. What does Spock do? Well, Spock periodically steals the Enterprise. Okay, let's have him do that. Well, there are rules within this fictional thing called Starfleet that they seem to break routinely now. That makes you wonder how any of that other stuff that now is in the future could have even taken place. I mean, wouldn't they immediately suspect Spock in Menagerie, for example, if he had the history that he had from Strange New Worlds?
Right.
Maybe they would. Yeah. That kind of thing. I do want to say that there were member berries in this week's episode that either you didn't notice or you're ignoring. I'm gonna say that I think you're probably you missed them. For example, the interface on the time agent that Lon encounters in the corridor.
Well, yeah, that's true. I did mention that is the interface.
But there's other ones. There's a Denobulin on the show that was the first Denobulin we'd seen since Enterprise. That's a member berry because he didn't have to be a
Denobulin. He just mentions that he was in a Denobulin.
No, we saw a Denobulin in the transporter room arguing with the new transporter chief.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
That guy didn't need to be a Denobulin to further the plot. So by most people's definition, that's a member berry.
Okay, but then let me ask you this. Okay, so then we got to get into what defines. How far do we go with what? And I think this is a worthy conversation, a worthy topic. What defines a member berry versus just being in a universe?
Well, I looked up what a member berry is supposed to be, and I wasn't familiar with the term because I don't watch South Park.
Right.
What the member berries were they were essentially related to the concept of the sour grapes, meaning
right.
They will they're there to provide a short-term burst of dopamine hit in a film, and when Trey Parker and Matt Stone first came up with them, they were used to describe movies that were basically just what they refer to as nostalgia bait.
Right.
And I think that in a show that's trying to be an entry in a pre-existing franchise like Star Trek, you're going to have what I would euphemistically call callbacks. They help present a familiar world. One of the things that Secret Hideout didn't do very well, whether by design or just by whatever, is that they didn't make a familiar Star Trek world when they, especially with Discovery. Now this is a little bit different, this one, and I think also especially with Picard, that world that they showed in Picard was not like the world that we saw whenever we saw Earth and things like that in TNG. And so I think when it came to Picard, I think they were trying to make up for it in some way, and by having visual callbacks in almost every scene to really hit home. Yes, this is supposed to be the world that you saw.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Kermit.
Hey, Kermit, let Darren finish, please.
How is everybody?
Good. Let Darren finish, please, Kermit.
Sorry, Darren.
It's okay, no, Kermit.
Darren, can I?
No. Oh no! Hold on.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you guys don't even listen? What the hell's going on here? All right. So
you stopped.
I think. Hold on.
Let Darren finish, guys.
All right. Is this code? When he says don't let Darren finish, does that mean you're supposed to interrupt me now? I mean, what the hell? It's like on cue. You
That's the code.
All right.
Oh god.
All right.
It's opposite
All right.
day.
All right. So I'm gonna wrap it up here just by saying that I think that one man's member berry is another man's callback. I had fun with the callbacks in Picard. Some of them were, not a little excessive. The Odo's bucket, for example. I agree with LDG. That didn't quite make sense, but I let him fudge that. There was so many other things that I liked about it. And I think that there were callbacks in this episode of Strange New Worlds too. But again, if you don't have a problem with their calling back to, it's not going to bother you. And I've decided not to let Strange New Worlds bother me, and in doing so, I've been able to enjoy it. I actually thought this episode at the end, when Lon broke down emotionally, the actress made me feel something there.
Yeah.
So that was good. I mean, I don't particularly care for Lon. I like Christina Chong, I think is her name.
Yeah.
I like her a lot.
Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, well, I remember her from she was in a couple episodes of Doctor Who a couple years ago with Matt Smith. So I remember her from that, and she played a military tough lady too in that one. But
I remember it.
Yeah, but she this was a Lon story, and it does have some interesting implications. It's almost, if I may speculate for a moment here, I think that they might be setting up a way for her to leave the show eventually and leave no residual presence. Like, what if she gets involved? She knows about this time thing now. What if they send her somewhere and hear her version of Kirk is back, and she gets to live happily forever after with him in some alternate universe, while as everybody in the Prime, or whatever this show's Prime universe is, forgets about her. That way, when we get to Space Seed, nobody remembers that an ancestor Akan was there, right? They could be setting something like that up for her. I don't know.
I tend to think that this is since this is an alternate timeline. It doesn't matter that they know she's there.
Right, and it doesn't matter that she apparently now at least knows in general what a Romulan might look like.
All she knows the Romulans are human.
Salty.
Well, and she also knows that there's something about their ears, because the Romulan woman mentioned her ears. But that's it. The fact that they can be surgically altered to look like humans means you're not dealing with something like a Horta or a Gorn or a Thulin.
Right, they're humanoids. That's all we know.
That's all we know. So I mean, and that's not a huge thing, but I think it's interesting.
All right, so
I'm done. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right,
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for
everybody. We're gonna be orderly here. John Gill, your turn.
What Darren said, the one thing that bothered me from the beginning, like since Star Trek Discovery, is that I watched Batman by Tim Burton and I watched Batman with Christian Bale, and there was never any issue with it not being canon to each other. And I watched Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. There was never any issue with it not canon being to each other. But then Alex Kurtzman started Star Trek Discovery and said, this has to be canon to the original Star Trek. And I'm asking myself, why? Why can't he just say,
because I can answer that. I can answer that for you.
Because money.
No, it's because the fans demanded it. It's because when they said, hold on, when it started in 2009, when when they announced J.J. Abrams was going to do a reboot Star Trek film, the fans went Batwoman crazy, saying, "How dare you think you're going to reboot Star Trek?" And so they came up with the clever thing of having Spock go back in time and creating an alternate timeline in order to create a within canon reboot so that the fans would be appeased. And so alternate timelines became the only way to do it. Because if you dare say we're going to reboot Star Trek, the Star Trek fans will show up at Paramount and with pitchforks and torches and burn the building down. Crap you not.
Wait.
Which fan? Wait. I'm a fan. I'm sorry. I'm a fan. You're a fan.
You're not an American. You don't understand.
You are.
You have to cross the pond.
Yeah.
Let me take one step further. Gage McFadden we talked about this in the Q&A. She talked about it. It actually started with Enterprise. She said they did not want Enterprise. It was a big mistake from on day one when Rick Berman created it out there. She said that will hurt the fans by going back, because she said, Gene wasn't there or something like this. She said if they went forward, like you'd be saying something earlier.
First of all, Gage McFadden had nothing to do with the production of Enterprise.
No. I know.
She's
talking about. They were talking about it. I'm talking about.
I'm gonna help Chief out here. But give me a second. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I was saying she was talking about the fans, how the fan was angry. She said they were getting hate mail when they started creating Enterprise. That's what I'm saying. She said they all hated it. It was a big mistake. They all talked about. You remember when LeVar Burton and Michael Dorn were talking bad about Enterprise? She said it would listen to the fans. She said if they create a series in the future and not going back, we wouldn't have this problem. She talked about that, talking how the fans were talking to them about it. And she said that was a mistake. Go ahead.
This picture was taken earlier this month at at Berman's home in California, and as you can see, it's most of the TNG primary cast. Marina might be taking the picture. I don't know. She's not in the picture, but there's Gates. Now these guys are all still pretty chummy, and conversations you got to know are happening. So she, even though she is just an actress, she may be privy to a lot of those things.
I grant you it's possible, but at the same time, look, what Gates McFadden says, quite frankly, doesn't carry a lot of weight with me. I'm just being honest.
I know that. She's not talking about that.
I don't necessarily think that the actors know as much as we want them to know either. I mean, obviously, Patrick Stewart ended up not knowing a whole lot about Picard, what made the character successful. We can tell that from Picard's. We can tell that from Picard seasons 1 and 2.
Right. Yeah, she also talked about it. They asked her to be on that V1 and 2. She said she didn't want to do it because she saw what he did to it. That's why if it had been Patrick Stewart, begged her to come on
Chief,
third season.
Kermit has been patiently waiting. Kermit, what did you want to say?
He's asleep.
Kermit.
Wouldn't it be hard to forget someone who has been there alone, who's been part of a ship's crew?
Well, I'm not sure I follow you. What do you mean?
If what Darian said, the Spock or whatever his name is, granddaughter, or was part of the, and basically she stays with that version of Kirk, and then they forget about her.
Well, he's talking about like if she went back in time and changed it so that nobody knew she ever existed.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Also,
that's what he meant. So I want to get to the super chat that came in a few minutes ago. So thank you to Daniel with 50. I don't know how to pronounce whatever that currency is. So I'll just call them sex because it sounds a lot like something nasty that you do, which is fun. It says, hello guys. Choose whatever, but at least one Berman era Trek, the best scene and the worst episode. All right, so I will go first. So the worst episode is easy. Threshold. Best scene in Threshold, Janeway says that she wanted to have sex with Paris.
Oh,
I just wanted to have offspring.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Darren, your turn. Hold on, we're going in order. Darren, your turn.
The best scene in. Thank you, Kermit. The best scene of the worst episode for me was, and I think the show was called Metamorphosis, where the crew was de-evolving.
Oh yeah.
And that was Genesis.
Genesis, that's what it was. Yeah, okay. Yep. So Dr. Crusher, who Gates McFadden directed the episode, so this is how they kind of wrote her out of the script for the show. She's examining Worf and sees the growths on his neck, and so she tells Worf to open his mouth, and he opens his mouth, and acid comes out and hits her in the face, and she's taken out of the show. And I remember how, and I don't know if she overacted or if she just really threw herself into this, covering her face and acting like her face was melting. I remember that real well. That was a pretty painful.
So just her general overacting by being sprayed with acid. All right, Mercer.
Well, I don't think this is the worst episode. You're going to have to give me a minute to think about it. But there was an episode called The Hunted where they're going after this genetically enhanced warrior. I don't know if he's genetically enhanced, but he would enhance later. And at one point, they're chasing him around the ship. This is the for Next Generation. And at one point, they go down to engineering, and you just see a whole bunch of guys laid out on the floor that this guy took out. And then Geordi wakes up. He's like, "I'm okay," and he says, "Worf is like, we're going to get more security people over here." And then Geordi comes in because he's only got like 2 lines in this whole episode. He's like, "You want my advice? Double it." And he just like puts his whole acting salary on that one line. Double it. I love that episode, but that moment in particular is just so funny. Anyway, that's all I can think of. I'll try to think of a worse episode later.
All right, BK Dan.
Is Best of Both Worlds in the Berman era?
It's supposed to be worst episode, best line, Berman era.
Okay.
Any show in the Berman era.
Is Best of Both Worlds in the Berman era?
Huh?
Because
it's anything from TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise.
Okay. Best of Both Worlds Part 1, to me, is the worst episode. The best scene in that episode is when Worf overreacts before they shoot the cube from the deflector dish. His face goes pale and everything. Yeah, that's the best scene to me. You
really thought Best of Both Worlds was a bad episode?
Yeah, Part 1 anyway.
Wow, I thought part 1 was good. I didn't like Part 2.
Oh, okay. Opposite, see.
All right, John Gill.
Yeah, Michael, since you already stole Threshold, so I guess I have to do a night in sick bay with I'll send you my lips. I'll do my breast. With the fallopian slips.
Oh man, I hate that episode. All right. Chief.
I do love Porthos. He was a good dog.
Chief, what do you got?
Oh, okay. The best scene.
Best line from the worst episode.
Okay. Oh God. I can't remember the scene of that episode. TNG. The two-parter when finally Data gets command of the Enterprise and Worf is first officer, and that scene where Worf every time he gives order, he's talking bad, about in front of the crew. He marches into the red room, and he scolds them. But that line, if you can't have when I pull up, I get it to Geordi. I said that right there, that should be all along. It should be Geordi first, but that scene right there, when you said that line, I can't remember what the line was, but that line where he was upset every time he gets orders, and you hear Worf. When I seen the Worf, kept talking bad about him right in front of everybody, and,
right.
and that scene.
Daniel, your last, Kermit, you're up.
I'm not sure I can contribute much to this conversation.
Wait, don't you watch Star Trek?
No, to this question here.
Well, that's okay. Well, then I will throw an honorable mention in for you.
I mean, thank you for doing it that way, but I just I like some episodes more than others, but I don't know.
No, that's okay.
If they have the best scene.
That's okay. I have two honorable mentions. One is from the Berman era. For First Contact, I will say Borg sounds Swedish.
Oh yeah,
I do love that.
I did great.
It's a flotation device or insurrection.
Yeah, it's The other one,
you
though,
get what I'm
is...
trying to say, though?
Oh, I'm programmed in multiple techniques. That's a good one, Gorilla.
Just the fact that they
I
spent
bet you are.
15 minutes. They spent 15 minutes in the episode Force of Nature without getting to the story. They were just like looking for
naked
spots.
people.
Yes, naked people on television back in the 80s.
No, but do you remember? Do you remember the episode
with ice carefully placed?
Do you remember the episode Force of
Or
Nature?
a leg.
No, which one was Force of Nature?
That's the one where they had the speed limit. Like we can now can't go past warp 3. Or
Oh,
something.
jeez, yeah.
Oh, it was so
that
terrible. That was
episode-
you could thank Jerry Taylor for that.
Yeah. But the point is, that was a really bad episode. But it also starts out with like the first 3 acts of that episode. Literally, that they haven't even got to the story yet. They're just looking for Spot. I think the first 3 acts, they're like looking under the bed. They're trying to feed Spot. And that's literally how the episode starts.
Hey, I got a question for you guys.
Oh, hold on. So just a minute, Kermit. My other honorable mention, because even though I know you want a Berman era, but I'm sorry, there are some real clunkers in TOS. So I want to say the worst episode of TOS, but best line. So Mary is an absolutely horrific episode of TOS. However, at the end of Mary, when Kirk says, "I never date older women."
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So.
Hey,
all right.
I got a question for you guys.
Salty. Did you get what I was trying to say though about the episodes?
Yeah, that's all right, Kermit. You know, hey, if you didn't have, I got you. You didn't have anything off the top of your head. It's good. We're good.
I'm not,
Chief,
as you may or may not know, I'm not as versed in Star Trek as you guys are.
I understand. You're not obsessed like the rest of us. It's okay. You're not.
And I apologize if that bothers
You don't have to apologize for not being crazy.
So they got rid of the speed limit pretty fast.
Yeah.
They got rid of the warp speed limit pretty fast, didn't
they? Just kind of
they did.
ignored it.
Yeah. They mentioned it in 2 more episodes and then it was gone.
Yeah.
Wait,
we lost somebody.
John.
John Gill. Oh yeah, John. That German internet.
Yep.
You know, one of my least. I mean, you know, Enterprise is a show that I defend because I like it. But
despite what you keep saying, I do like Enterprise.
Yeah. The episode Shuttle Pod 1, which was written by Brannon Braga, same guy who wrote Threshold.
Yes.
It's hailed as one of the best episodes of the first season, but that was the episode that actually made me quit watching the show for the rest of the season.
Oh.
Because you had these two in a confined space, and granted, a lot of this has to do with the fact that I was trained to work in a
submarine
in a enclosed environment, and when they're running out of air and Trip decides to light a candle for mood, I was like,
really?
What? It's like, you're the last person who would do that. Life support systems on board the ship are your bread and butter in addition to the propulsion, obviously. So you're not going to do that. And then they're supposedly space, which we all know.
Well, that's when they gave up. They lit the candle because they gave up.
And no, they didn't. Now there's another part where they stop a leak in the ship with mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
But the mashed potatoes would just get sucked out into space.
Well, sucked or blown, but it's not gonna stop the leak.
No, I'm sorry, Data. They would get sucked out into space. I don't give a crap if you want to say blown. It would get sucked out.
That was a great blooper from the blooper reel.
Speaking
correction,
of,
sir, that's sucked out.
Speaking of,
which actually it's now getting sucked out again. I mean, it went from suck to blow, now it's back to suck.
Speaking of air, burning air, I got a question for you guys. During Burma era, any series, which episode you think it should have been a 2-parter in any era?
Well, Threshold would have definitely benefited from an extra hour because the resolution of what you do with the captain and the helmsman, who are now salamander parents, was resolved in a cut to the next scene.
Yeah, they went to commercial and they came back and they're healed.
Yeah, they're completely restored, and it's like, well, if you can do that, holy shnikes, no wonder people like the Doctor on Voyager. They think he's the best Doctor. Look what he did, but I mean,
he can give you a shot to cure you being a salamander.
Yeah, why didn't they do that with the kids?
Yeah.
Why didn't they turn the kids into humans?
Yeah. Which, by the way, if the Doctor can give you a shot to cure you from being a salamander, why didn't they use their Warp 10 engine to go to the Alpha Quadrant?
Thank you. That's a good question.
Thank you.
What,
Thank you.
And you guys?
Because Jamie starts fucking
I got an answer for you, Chief. I got an answer for you. Season 1 TNG conspiracy.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
Oh my
god.
It should have been two-parter.
So when they go to work,
that should have been a season-long arc.
Well, you want to know why it wasn't a two-parter? Because Roddenberry hated two-parters.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. He wanted Encounter at Fort Point to be a single episode.
What was the episode you're talking about?
And the only reason the Menagerie was a two-parter was budgetary. They were trying to save money for the first season.
Well, I was asking questions.
Darian.
Yeah, I was asking
it's
questions.
Darren, not Darian.
Darren. Sorry.
Hold on, Chief. Kermit's trying to ask Darren a question. Go ahead.
I was wondering, and this you can do it for anyone can answer, but didn't they mention warp speed is like some kind of times factor beyond actual warp?
That's a salty question, not a Darren question.
Yeah,
he's going to be much better. He's going to be much better at answering that than I am.
It is an exponential scale. It is not a linear scale. So yes, warp speed.
TOS was linear.
Huh?
TNG is not. TOS was linear. TNG is not.
Well, here's the problem: is that, and this is the interesting thing. Within canon, there is no TOS versus TNG warp scale. That's all fan theory.
Right.
And so as far as what we've seen on screen, there's just warp 1, warp 2, warp 3, warp 4, warp 5, warp 6, warp 7, warp 8, warp 9. The only difference is that in TOS, they went to warp 10, warp 11, warp 12, warp 13. And in TNG, warp 10 became the speed limit, even though apparently in an alternate future, the Enterprise could go warp 13. But
did they ever explain that?
Well, I do have something on that. Yes, Michael Okuda's tech manual, he mentions from the series Bible, and this was never stated on screen, so it can't be considered canonical, but it can be considered conjectural because there are documents that say this.
Right.
That the TOS era warp scale was whatever the warp factor was to the cube, whereas when you get to TNG, it was to the 5th power.
Right.
And
so they're both exponential scales.
But they both get exponential as you get closer to the last numbers. But yeah,
okay.
It's yeah.
What is ultra warp in? Ultra warp. What was?
Well, Kermit, I think
that's like saying hypersonic. All that is saying it's really fast. You do realize that hypersonic does not mean anything more than supersonic. It doesn't. Hypersonic doesn't mean anything special. It just means it's beyond Mach whatever.
Yeah, because I'm thinking ultra. I'm thinking ultra like.
It's the fastness of the speed of the plot. That's all it is.
I'm thinking
however the plot needs to move.
Yeah, I'm thinking like
it's like the turbo lifts. They go as fast as the scene requires.
Right.
It's like the quantum drive doesn't make any sense, and I love the Orville. The quantum drive doesn't make a shit sense.
They didn't bother explaining to us anything about the quantum drive, and I kind of like that. To be honest.
Yeah.
Because
hypersonic is Mach 5. Is there anything special about Mach 5? No. Okay. It's just we decided that at Mach 5 we're going to call it hyper instead of super. All right. So when Sulu said there's something coming in at ultra warp speed, he just meant it's really fast.
What's the name of the episode? What was that name of the episode?
Journey to Babel.
Journey to Babel. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's when the ship.
You might be right. I know that the ship in Journey to Babel was moving at like warp 13.
Okay, I don't. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't remember if that's when he used the term. But that's what I'm thinking of.
Right.
If they went to...
And part of that was because the ship, and Spock was saying the ship was using 100% power with its reactor. So the Enterprise could theoretically go that fast, but it would burn itself out. And the whole point was the ship was on a suicide mission.
I have a theory on that. I have a theory on that.
Hold on, that reminds me of submarine movies where they say, "Oh, they're going at they're giving 110% of the reactor."
120.
No, you are going 100% of that reactor. You are not going anywhere. It can't go any farther than that.
Yes,
like Hunt for Red October. They said it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think they push it to like 120% or something.
Something like that. Well, that was the.
And I love that movie, but that movie has a lot of weird. Like in the movie, he figures out that he knows it's a Dallas. Like in the beginning of the movie, and at the end, he's like near the end, he's surprised that it's the Dallas that knows about the Red October. It's like, what's this ship over here? Oh, that's the Dallas. But he already knew that the Dallas had already been tracking them. Because at briefing, he tells everybody the Dallas is tracking it.
No, they didn't. No.
Yeah,
that's when he found when he saw the Dallas on that
screen
map screen. That was the first time he'd ever, and that's when the Enterprise captain told him he's tracking something that his computer says is a seismic anomaly.
No, because at the briefing when he's like, "Speak your mind, Jack," he said the USS Dallas has been tracking it. At the briefing,
the Dallas was tracking it until it went to the Caterpillar drive.
Yeah,
and it lost. It lost contact.
Right.
But he wasn't okay. Here's what happened. Here's the series of events. Okay, the Red October disappeared in front of the Dallas. It disappeared. Okay, and so that's what went into Ryan's report to the Joint Chiefs. Then, later on in the film, Jonesy heard something real faint and the computer told him it was magma displacement.
Exactly, but you think he'd know.
Yeah. So he figured out that was man-made, and so they continued to track that sound, but they still had lost the Red October, and they were proceeding on a hunch. Now, then when we catch up to Ryan on the Enterprise, the captain of the Enterprise, played by Fred Thompson, Ruskies don't take a dump, son, without a plan. He tells him that's Bart Mancuso's boat. He's tracking what his computer calls us, a magma displacement, and that's when Ryan puts it together because it's like, okay. I think he's on the Red
I agree,
October.
but my point is that he would already have suspected the Dallas because the Dallas had.
He wasn't suspecting the Dallas.
No, if you listen to what I said, you wouldn't believe that, Mercer. You got to watch that movie again.
Yes.
Look,
I agree.
A lot of subs.
Mercer.
Salty, call Ripley. I agree with Darren. Call Ripley.
Yeah, right. Mercer. Remember the first scene. When you was talking to James R. Joe, he said they have been tracking Red October since he left Pearl. Left Harbor.
Paul Yarny.
Yarny. Okay.
Why are we talking about Red October? We're supposed to be talking about people bitching about Star Trek.
Because it's a Star Trek extra. Because the person who composed the soundtrack to Hunt for Red October was a Klingon.
Okay.
It's just like Star Trek.
Okay, the original. Okay, Mercer. Okay, the original.
BK.
Okay, the original idea question I asked everybody. What episode? And from the Varmint era should have been a two-parter. That was the
I answered already. That was my answer already. Was Conspiracy season 1.
Yeah.
Well, I said Conspiracy
Frame of mind.
an entire season.
BK.
Yeah.
Frame of mind. Definitely.
I like your picture that you have up in your little thumbnail.
I think Brothers should have been a two-part episode.
I'll take that.
Quite frankly, I don't. You know what? I don't believe in padding unnecessarily, and I don't. And I don't think that most of Trek was not dense enough to really require more episodes. And in fact, that's one of the weaknesses of Trek. I think that Ronald Moore, if you look at, and this is one of the reasons that I really wish Ronald D. Moore got a chance to be an absolute God mode showrunner of a Trek show. Because if you look at what he did with Battlestar Galactica, that is a dense show. That and that's
No, it's not.
Chief. You never let people finish. You got to relax, buddy. But if Ronald D. Moore, granted, I know that he likes to make things excessively dark, but but he also worked within the confines of Trek. He understands Trek, and so he could do this if he was allowed to do true Star Trek, but his mode of writing and packing things in and creating a truly great serialized story, man, we could have something special. But
he actually doesn't know.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they're not going to do that.
Yeah,
he doesn't know.
I loved Trials and Tribulations, but I wouldn't want it to become a two-parter. I think it's perfectly paced as the episode that it is.
It would just be padded to make it a two-parter.
Wait, Darren, can I please say, Ronald D. Moore, he does that. Battlestar Galactica was the opposite of Star Trek, but for all mankind, it is like Ronald D. Moore doing Star Trek in a Ronald D. Moore way, basically.
Mm-hmm. I haven't watched For All Mankind, so
you should watch that. It's basically Star Trek and in a Ronald D. Moore way.
What service is it on?
Apple Plus. So
I heard it feels like a prequel to Star Trek.
Oh, it is.
That's what I heard.
No,
it's a Ronald D. Moore show.
Yeah, it is. He's the showrunner.
Except the world
is it still going, or is it something that's done?
It's still going. It's still going. Yeah.
How many seasons is it?
3.
3 so far.
Yeah, 3.
And the third one, they get to Mars.
Kermit.
No spoilers.
Kermit.
Oh,
you just spoiled it for me. Dude.
Smoke the dog shit out of him.
Don't say anything about it. For the first scene is just awesome, and then you're just like,
I will watch it when I do have Apple Plus, so I got to figure out how to log into it on my computer so that I can.
Hey Kermit, have you seen Presumed Innocent? Yes, and his wife killed her.
No, I haven't.
It was the one-armed man, dude. It was the one-armed man.
That was.
I want to tell you something unique. I won't reveal what the
No. We're not talking. Don't say anything about No.
They have news.
Full stop.
Kermit. No. Don't say anything about that show. Nothing about that show.
I just told you.
I'm not listening. Nothing about that show.
La.
You understand, Kermit? Do not say anything about that show. Not one word.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, by the way, LDG thinks you owe him $100.
Huh?
I said NASA.
LDG thinks you owe him $100.
Yeah, LDG is full of crap.
LG here?
Okay. Salty NASA. That's all.
Hey, Andy, how you doing, buddy?
Hey.
Oh, he's here. Yeah.
LG, I got a question. Hey, LG. I wish you'd come up by the time, but I was gonna say, LG. I went to a convention with Kate McFadden, and she agreed with
Why
everything
do you
you said
keep
about.
talking about Gates McFadden, dude?
I'm talking about what you said about last week. I'm just saying.
He's roasting Danny.
Hey, so Chief, how flexible? Chief, how flexible was Gates McFadden's mask? Was she like? Did any of it like bend in a funny way?
I got a great story. I wish I was on my computer. I can show you. We did not recognize it. We was in the thing. We was walking around. A lot of people was there. Dr. Doc Brown was there. Christopher Lloyd, Lou Ferrigno, and people.
Okay, yeah, get to the story.
Yeah.
Right.
But she was walking in, and nobody didn't recognize her. She was like,
because plastic surgery, real.
Yeah, and she finally.
Hey, I'm Gates McFadden.
Now you can see. Now look at the picture. You see this picture right? Look what she's wearing. Okay, it's all mixed right here. The dress and everything.
Yep.
She was walking. Yeah. can't see it, but when
Hello.
she came up,
McFadden.
but when she came up on stage, nobody recognizes that's Gates McFadden. Yeah, that's Gates McFadden. It's like what? Nobody. She was walking down like normal people.
And this ship is moving way too fast.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it was so funny. You know,
Chief, you talk more about Gates McFadden than Danny does, and that's solo.
No,
yeah,
I was
scary, man. You need
I was
talking
just saying funny, but
you need to really stop talking about it.
Yeah, if you say Gates McFadden one more time, you're losing a testicle.
It's bad enough. Did you know, Chief Cook, he needs to turn in his nerd card because he doesn't know who Edith Keeler is. So
it's a long time since.
Were you born without a soul?
It's a long time I watched TOS.
And Gates was in Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, I know.
Gates had 2 lines. In
She was the star of Hunt for October.
And she was gonna be the second episode, the second movie, but they cast somebody else.
Jack, you're gonna miss the plane. That's her big line.
One question.
It's kind of like Linda Tran's huge part in Jurassic Park 3. Someone's on the phone for you.
One question, please, Chief. Where are you from? That's like really southern sounding.
He's in Memphis.
I'm like
Tennessee.
Yeah. You know, I'm in Tennessee as well, but you see, I'm in Murfreesboro, and I'll tell you. So Memphis, if God was to give Tennessee an enema, He would stick the hose in Memphis.
Memphis is the worst city in the whole state of Tennessee.
Did you see that Far Side where where he sprinkles the jerks on? He's like, now to add some little spice, and he sprinkles like he's making the earth, and he's got all the races of people, and he starts sprinkling jerks onto the earth, spice things up a little bit.
I guess you kind of had to be there, huh, Mercer?
Yeah, it's a garbage.
And no, Stanley. Elvis is from Memphis. Dolly Parton is from Sevierville.
Elvis,
which is on the opposite side of the state. Elvis was in Memphis. Justin Timberlake is from Memphis. Memphis produces, idiots and drunks and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Elvis is from Tupelo, Mississippi.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
He's from Tupelo, Mississippi.
Guys who die on their toilets are from Memphis.
Yeah.
Occasionally turn.
You're guilty, yeah.
President Archer,
thank you very much.
To Paramount Plus.
Nice.
They were actually talking.
I honestly think we should have a President Archer show.
Oh God.
I think one season would be good. I think just have a one season.
One episode. One episode would do.
I don't even think so. Like not a President Archer show. Let me rephrase that. We could do a show that takes place like halfway in between Enterprise and TOS, and have President Archer as a character on the show, a reoccurring character.
What's this? Bakula's already. He's on a couple of other Paramount Plus shows,
right? And it could be a political thriller. That could be the theme of the show. Is that it could be like the interesting political struggles of the Federation as it's growing.
Right. Yeah, because he was. I think conjecturally, he was the first UFP president. I think is what they established somewhere.
Let's kill Archer.
But basically not in a in-universe way, but just as a TV watching way. Scott Bakula can basically be in anything, and you can enjoy it because he's really charismatic.
I think that doing that could be a lot of fun, and they could do something to try and reconcile some of the mess they've got.
It's funny. Most of you know who Michael what's his name? Burnett. Richard. What's his full name? I can't remember. His last name's Burnett.
Robert Meyer Burnett.
Robert Meyer Burnett. Yeah.
I know. let me start by saying I respect him. He's intelligent. Yeah. He's not as intelligent as you, Darren, but he's a very intelligent guy. But when I watched that video of his 34-minute tirade about the state of Star Trek, and I wanted to punch him in the face about 500 times after watching it. But go ahead.
Of course, yeah, not a problem. It's funny. He was on a stream where they actually had Connor Trinneer and the actors who played Trip and Reed from Enterprise on it.
Yeah,
I think it might have been Midnight's Edge or something. And
Dominic
Keating.
Dominic
Keating. And he was telling. Shut up. He was telling them how there might be that and again, and I know this is just a member berry to some of you, but he said that they put something in Picard season 3 that suggested that the ending of Enterprise wasn't what we saw, and both those actors perked up. Like, and then Burnett told them about how the their Enterprise was different in the museum than it was on the show, and they were both like, really, this is the first time they'd heard of it, and then that was the only part of the show that I watched, but I thought that was kind of funny because that's actors, especially at their level, they're some of the last people to know about anything.
Well, that is one thing that I actually, look, if you haven't seen the Robert Meyer Burnett video about the state of Star Trek, where he basically goes on.
How long ago was it published?
Like a week ago.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to get a time.
It's like a 35-minute video, and I actually downloaded it because I plan on doing a full response to it, because he basically spends most of the video just ranting about how horrible everything is, except for Picard season 3, which he thinks is the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. And however,
not better than normal.
But he thinks everything else is absolute trash. Now I know why, and my response video, I already have a great title for it. My response video is going to be called "Robert Meyer Burnett: A Case Study in Confirmation Bias," because the problem is
you trying to start a war.
No, don't get me wrong. I like Robert Meyer.
You've crossed horns with him before.
Yes, I have, and I like him personally. Yeah. He's an intelligent guy, but you know what? He's worked on TNG Blu-rays. He's worked with the TNG cast. He's too close to TNG to give any kind of unbiased, talk about this. So of course, the one show that's a TNG reunion, he says is freaking awesome, and everything else is garbage.
Well, everybody's got their preferences. I mean, we all know how much you like Strange New Worlds.
It's in the chat. It's in the private. The link to the.
Yeah.
You put the link to that video.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so there you are, Chief.
I mean, if they came up with a Deep Space Nine season 8. 10-episode reunion show on Paramount Plus.
I would love to see a Deep Space Nine,
especially if I were Steven Barron.
Too many people died.
And a few other people, But or if they actually had an Enterprise season 5, even though they're all kind of old now, I would mind that too. But I mean,
Darren, they can do it animated, like the new Babylon 5 movie.
No. I think the thing to do, like I said, do President Archer in a sequel series. You can have Trip be a high-ranking official in Starfleet now, like he's the head of the Starfleet Corps of Engineers. You have Malcolm Reed being the head of intelligence or something. You can follow these guys in their later
secretary.
Career.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just want to see them again. I think that show.
Get Blaylock back.
Yeah.
She
ain't going back.
Yeah, she's now a Vulcan, priestess and hooker or something. I don't know.
Well, she's not.
We gotta bring Rajin back.
I don't know how she looks nowadays. So I can't.
We gotta bring Rajin back.
She married her kid, so she's not going back. She said she's done with Star Trek.
All right. So if she's not coming back, you just say something happened.
You know what? So is Michelle Forbes, and she came back for.
That's true. You give an actor enough money, and they'll do anything. That's the thing. Look, let me say this.
Well,
I've said this before, so there's nothing new or revolutionary. Actors are whores. All right, so and because actors will do anything you want them to do for enough money.
I'll put a shirt on top of that. Emotional whore.
Well, they're total whores because they will even have sex if you give them enough money. It's just you got to give them enough money.
She's married kids.
I don't know. Some people won't take it off, but I mean, platonic whores.
If you give them, you know what? Halle Berry for $100,000 showed breast in Swordfish.
Yeah, I know. She did that money. I know.
So you know what? They're freaking whores. That's all they are.
That's just one act. That's one actress. Okay.
Yeah, but you know what? Any actor will do it. It's you got to.
I can name a couple that wouldn't. I can name a couple who wouldn't because those are the ones that use body doubles.
Yeah, but you know what? So they'll hire a body double and say, "Is this good enough?" And if the studio's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Because you know what? The studio's thinking about the Benjamins, and so the studio's like, "Okay, we could pay $10,000 for a body double versus $1 million for the real thing. We'll take the body double."
Emilia Clarke on Game of Thrones had a body double that was practically her twin. I mean, we kind of already know what she looks like because of this body double, naked and everything. But so I mean, there are people that won't do it.
Is there a signal when everybody is done shouting?
You're right about that. Not a lot.
But they're still whores. I mean, and that's the thing. I'm sorry. If you're willing to sit there and say, you know what, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on camera and say, "Oh yeah, baby," and then have someone else come in and be my body, that's even worse. Because now you're trying to say that I'm better than this other person who I'm going to denigrate.
You're subcontracting out.
I'm somehow
nobody's forcing that body double. Nobody's forcing that body double.
My goods, my goods are so valuable that I can't possibly show you my stuff. But you know what? This whore over here, she can do it. So she'll just take off her clothes and just don't show her face.
I think you got that all out of phase.
No, that is exactly what it is.
That's what Danny does for him.
I think there's a lot of cynicism in what you're saying.
No, tell me what is inaccurate about what I just said.
Well, first of all, nobody's forcing the body double. They're also getting money.
You think the body double is aspiring to be a naked whore for cash? You think that's what
they still have a choice? They absolutely still have a choice.
I'm not saying that somebody's pointing a gun to their head. I'm saying, do you think that that's their dream in Hollywood is to be the naked body for Emilia Clarke? Do you think that's what they want to do?
Some of them, that's all they want to do.
Really,
it's my dream.
Yeah, most people that end up in porn don't go to Hollywood to be porn stars. They go to Hollywood.
They're not. You're absolutely right. They aren't. But some of them do. So the other thing is that an actress who doesn't, or an actor, I mean, let's face it, who doesn't want to bare his ass in front of the camera because his wife wouldn't like it or their spouse wouldn't like it. I'm fine with the body double stepping in.
But you know what? Then they're perfectly willing to make out with somebody on camera. And I think that's way more intimate.
Well, not necessarily.
Really? Emilia Clarke doesn't kiss anybody?
I said Emilia Clarke in the example of how much her body double looked like her.
I know, but I'm just saying, does she kiss anybody on screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't watch Game of Thrones because I think the show is trash.
Why are we talking about this?
Because he mentioned it.
Again,
we were just talking about Enterprise.
I know
there are examples.
Yeah, I wonder if that was for body doubles when they were in the decon chamber.
Yeah. Talk about. Well, anyway, never mind about that.
Yeah.
But
I don't. But anyway, but the point is that if you give an actor enough money, they will come back. Look at Picard. Yeah. Patrick Stewart said he was done with Star Trek, and he came
Shatner.
back.
Shatner came back for a DirecTV ad where that ended up being his final performance as James T. Kirk.
Oh, with the Gorn?
No. Well, he was playing himself in that, but he actually came. There was a DirecTV commercial where they actually reconstructed the Enterprise A's bridge from Star Trek VI, the Undiscovered Country. They brought back a couple of actors that had been extras and stuff, and he he tells the camera all about the savings they can get from DirecTV on that set, and it's blended into the footage from the film, so it looks like it's happening in the movie.
Wow.
I don't remember that. He after he said he'd never play Kirk again, DirecTV got him to play Kirk one more time. So there you go.
Can I just have 5 seconds?
Well, okay.
Sure.
5 seconds. I'm one of the very small minority. I was a fan of Star Trek Enterprise since day one because I really like the cast and I really like the sets and I really like the tone. And we were talking about it for a short time, and suddenly it turns into porn. And I was excited.
Well, let's be realistic. It was, decon chamber sex for a little while, but
I know that
decon chamber scene in the first episode was ridiculous.
I realized that at that point where Rick Berman and Brandon Braga had been doing Star Trek for so many years, they were running a little dry, so the plots weren't the greatest. But I was a fan of the show since day one because I really I think it's one of the best casts since TOS because I like every single actor. Unlike TNG, I don't like every single actor in TNG. I don't like Will Wheaton. I don't really like Gates McFadden. And I don't like every single actor on Deep Space Nine, even though I'm a big Deep Space Nine fan. I don't think that Terry Farrell is an amazing actress. Sorry. But Enterprise, it has an amazing cast. Like Scott Bakula is freaking amazing. Connor Trenier, Dominic Keating, Jolene Blaylock in her own way, and John Billingsley. It's a really damn good cast.
I actually agree with you, and that's why I get mad at Darren for constantly saying how much I hate Enterprise, because I really don't.
You just show it every time you talk.
Take it easy, Indy. You have a good night, buddy.
Oh, later, Indy.
Yeah. But the thing that gets me is that Brandon Braga, he had all these leftover Voyager writers in season 1 of Enterprise, and he fired every single one of them after that show except for Mike Sussman. Mike Sussman was the only writer that was retained because it wasn't working. The show was getting, it was one of the first ratings drops they'd ever experienced, hard ratings drops, and he was talking about how a lot of the writers claimed to be Star Trek experts, but clearly weren't. And then when they demonstrated that, then he got rid of them. Right. It was hard to find replacement writers. They had to go back to the well a couple times, so that production, a lot of the problems with that show had to deal with network stepping in. Deep Space Nine and TNG didn't have a network, so they didn't have that kind of interference level, and it became the show it became. But it was getting better, and it started from too negative a position.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, for comedy, I put the TV ad in the private.
I like the Zindi. I like the Zindi arc quite a bit. I didn't love everything about it, but I liked the Zindi arc quite a bit.
Yeah, we talked about that, and we was at a convention, how the networks kept interfering in TNG a lot. It was just hard to make. She said it was hard to make, but you were absolutely right about that. She said the network, the powers that be, keep coming down there trying to change this. And
I don't want to hear about Gates McFadden.
Yeah, we told you that you would lose a testicle if you mentioned Gates McFadden again. Did you think we were kidding?
I'm just saying. I'm agreeing with what you're saying, because someone was talking about the same thing, how the networks keep coming in and changing. About that. We talked about that.
If you mention Gates McFadden again on this stream, you will be admitting to being gay.
I'm not saying anything about gay, but I just saying I agree with what you said. No, I'm just saying when we had a Q&A, everybody was talking about that. They were talking about how the network did this. And
can you do that without saying Gates McFadden?
Did I say anything?
You said Gates McFadden when you first started talking.
Gates McFadden. I didn't say anything about Gates McFadden.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I said we talked about
it. You say she.
I said we talked about that in the Q&A. How the producer.
Who was the Q&A with?
The fans. We the fans.
Yeah, the fans and who?
I'm saying word.
Ba, ba, ba.
I didn't say a name. Like I said, I don't say a name. I'm just saying we was talking about that.
The fans were in a Q&A with whom?
Dr. Crusher.
You told me.
Say Dr. Crusher.
Yeah, Gates McFadden. So that's why I said I don't want to hear about Gates McFadden.
I know that. That's why I said. I know that.
Yeah, so shut up.
I ain't say her name.
Her opinion means squat on this panel.
No,
I don't care.
I ain't talking about
Chief, we know you're excited. It's always exciting to meet an actor from the show.
No, it's not that. I'm talking about.
It's the closest thing we can ever get to physically being in the presence of some of these characters. I understand that. And
I'm
you're
just saying
probably a little bit on fire about it, but
No.
But Gates
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
I've only fanboyed out about meeting one person. That's William Shatner.
I'm not fanboying. I'm just
every other actor I've met. No big deal. You are too, Chief. You've been talking about Gates McFadden for 2 freaking weeks now. You can't shut up about her.
I mean, the first when you popped up here.
Talking about, I'm saying we was talking about that same thing at the thing. Stories about how the producers, did this and that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I agree with you.
Well, TNG and Deep Space Nine had to deal with people at Paramount who were who were worried about the franchise because ultimately Paramount owned the franchise. But when they came to UPN, they had this whole other CBS structure to deal with on top of Paramount, and that's where a lot of problems came from. The
UPN experiment.
The whole reason why Voyager had pylons that would move was because UPN wanted the ship to have some part that articulated, and that's what they were able to come up with. And that is why, to this day, Voyager is the only Federation starship or Starfleet vessel that had an articulation frame for anything really.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is just kind of silly.
Because they insisted that the ship needed something like that to make it stick out from the other ships in the franchise.
Oh, it stuck out.
Actually, do you know the in-universe explanation of that? That it's like based on the TNG episode "Force of Nature."
Right. Except it doesn't make sense because it was only ever in 2 positions. So you could have just left them up the whole time. It would have been fine.
Yeah, when I first read that in-universe explanation, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Are you talking about the nacelles? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They moved in the credits. That's all I remember for some reason.
Yeah, they moved whenever the ship would go into warp.
Yeah,
and it's like, why didn't they just leave them up?
Yeah.
If they always go up whenever they go into warp, why ever put them down?
Because there's also an explanation for that apparently Gene Roddenberry wanted it that way, that the saucer section is always above the nacelles when viewed from the front.
Well, the original Enterprise didn't have.
Why did they put the shields down ever? Why don't they just put the shields down?
He wanted you to be able to see the nacelles and particularly the ram scoops. So that's why the Enterprise C is such a bad design, because the ram scoops are behind the saucer. They can't get any stellar matter to go into them because the saucer flanges are in the way. But every other ship either has them above the saucer or below the saucer, so we can see them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
the collector was buzzer collectors, not ram scoops.
Same difference.
Yeah, no.
Okay, what was the difference between that bioneural
gel packs?
Yeah.
They're faster processors than the processors that we have on like Galaxy class, the isolinear chips, because they use neurological biology in conjunction with isolinear technology, and somehow the two merge together. Technobabble, BSBS work together to work faster.
We never saw them again, so they must have been a failure, because we saw in Voyager that they could get sick, which an isolinear chip isn't going to do. So I mean, I happen to believe in my own headcanon, this isn't Halibut and a couple other things that I've written, that the Intrepid class was actually deemed a design failure in most ways, and there were only 3 made. the Intrepid, the Bellerophon, and the Voyager.
Yeah,
That's why we haven't seen any. The only evidence of a further design influence on the fleet was the Enterprise E, because it had no neck, kind of like Voyager did. But that's it. No flexing nacelles, no bioneural circuitry. None of the big innovations of that show made it into other ships.
Actually, I thought the Enterprise did have bioneural circuitry.
It did. It did. And it said in the movie, what's that movie? When it came with the Borg, it was talking about how the Borg interface, they were trying to simulate the bioneural frequency thing.
They said they had isolinear chips everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you find a line, I'll look at it.
Okay.
But what's the episode of Voyager?
Oh, Chief. Fix that, Chief.
So disruptive, Chief.
We're getting feedback from somebody.
That's Chief.
Hello.
There, it's coming from Kermit. Kermit, we're getting massive feedback. I had to mute you because everything's.
Chief is doing too. So yeah, mute too.
Okay, was that episode? They said they stopped using burn that episode in Voyager because they said they ran out of energy, so they started using regular warp thing. I think it was an episode about that. Voyager.
Be more specific.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Is it better?
Yeah, you're better now.
I'm on an iPad, so there's only so much I can do to fix it.
All right, so Arabic,
Well,
thank
I
you.
know how
$5. Hold on, Arabic Sonder with a $5 super chat says, just got home from Denver Comic Con, met Brent Spiner. He joked about their not. By the way, Brent Spiner much more clout than Facebook. Although Brent Spiner loves one thing, and that's Brent Spiner. He joked about there not being enough Soongs in Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. Thought of you. It's funny you should say that because I think we're going to get a Soong in Strange New Worlds sooner or later.
I didn't Lower Decks.
I hope not.
I
hope not.
I don't know about Lower Decks, but I do think we're going to get one in Strange New Worlds. I think that the Khan saga is just beginning.
How can there be a whole bunch of Soongs, though? Weren't they all exiled or whatever?
Here's the problem that I have with the Soongs. They got some really recessive genes.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, they
all look alike.
They
all look alike. Yeah.
But weren't they all exiled?
Look alike. Yeah.
No, Michael is right. The Khan saga is just beginning. They're just going to con Star Trek fans into.
Yeah.
But wasn't Khan exiled?
Khan's yes.
And all his people?
We're in. Kermit, did you watch this week's episode of Strange New Worlds?
No, I'm just.
Well,
who the fuck would do that?
Problem. Then you hold on, Kermit. You need to watch this week's episode of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, and you haven't seen it. What happens?
I
haven't seen it. What happens?
Nothing.
We get a Khan reboot.
I want to talk to something here about Khan in general.
I have something else to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, two things. First, I had to my iPad screen was starting to come out, so I taped it.
Okay.
And it works pretty well. And
That's
second,
good.
I'm gonna head out now.
All right, Kermit.
Oh,
You have a
later,
good
Kermit.
night.
I think I've reached a limit
Good night,
of my
Kermit.
Star Trek talk.
All right, buddy. You have a good one.
Okay. Night, Kermit.
One of the things.
I think I lasted longer than I normally would.
Yes.
Hey, buddy. Take it easy.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Later.
One of the things about Khan that I always thought was interesting was he was supposed to be this genetically engineered Superman, yet he was not blonde-haired and blue-eyed, which is what a lot of people would have gone with him. Instead, they decided to make this Superman brown with dusky hued, basically. And I always thought that was a very bold choice, particularly for in the 60s when he was introduced. Yeah.
I agree.
I like the fact they kept Ricardo Montalban. I like that. Sorry.
Well, Ricardo Montalban was, he chewed up the scenery very well, even though it's kind of funny because I always joked about how she saw his bold Latin features and immediately said, "Oh, he's obviously Indian." I love that line. But
that's the question I wanted. Where's Khan originally from?
He's Indian. Khan Noonien Singh. That is Indian. He is Northern Indian.
It's like Northern. Okay.
Okay, and so, but the problem is that Ricardo Montalban obviously not Indian, right? But they cast him because he was an actor he was an ethnic actor they could get, and at the time, Hollywood just would grab any person who was not white to play any character who was not white.
Michael.
He did play Native American in Western movies. He did play a couple of Native American Western movies.
What do you expect? Like, hello, I am Khan. I am the superior being.
Yeah. But that's the funny thing is that now we see, and I'm just waiting for the hate on Baby Khan because of the fact that he doesn't look like Ricardo Montalban.
Well, neither did Benedict Cumberbatch.
Well, yeah, the hate on Benedict Cumberbatch for making Khan English was stupid. All right, I'm totally with people on that, and in fact, my headcanon on that was that's not really Khan. That was actually like Joaquin or one of the other guys, and he was pretending to be Khan.
Yeah, they call him Harrison or something like that in the original.
Well, the whole idea there was JJ likes to have a mystery, and so he likes to throw out little tidbits to the audience.
But he originally cast Benicio del Toro, but he had to back out.
Yeah, and so I believe in the story they said that they took Khan, surgically altered him, and gave him like different speech mannerisms or something like that to make him not resemble Khan.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he might be recognized, by historians or something. So that was
which is
the idea
just
that
dumb.
Yeah, but I mean I like Benedict Cumberbatch, and if you're Benedict Cumberbatch and you're trying to break into major motion pictures, you're going to take that job. Right. So I don't blame him for it, but at the same time, I mean, just the scene where he looks right at the audience and said, "My name,"
Yeah, and Kirk
is like, yeah, and Kirk's like, "Ooh," it's like, no,
but yeah. And 47 Yorktown with a Danny special, $4.20 says technically Khan is now Canadian.
Well, the scientists. I mean, it's I mean, the genetics. I mean, obviously, if they pulled from all kinds of genetic sources, even though he's supposed to be Indian, he could look like Ricardo Montalban too. I mean, but the whole idea was that he wasn't blonde hair and blue eyed, and I think that was really
I like that. And but I'm genuinely curious as to where they're going to go with the new Khan saga. I'm okay with the, honestly, now that they brought in the Time Variant Authority, and they've kind of sort of established.
Is that what they're called? The TVA? Are you talking about the TVA?
I'm getting my franchise. What are they called? Somebody help me out.
Temporal Agency.
Whatever it is. Yeah. The Federation Time Cops, whatever they're called.
Well, Temporal Investigations was in Cisco's era. That Dahmer and Luxley were them, but
I think they did call themselves Temporal Investigations.
Well, in Trials and Tribulations, that's what the two guys that interviewed Cisco were from. But the Voyager, when they encountered Branson and a bunch of other people from, it had a different name. It was
the guy in this movie who was the agent. Is it the same agent? He looked like the same agent from Voyager, the first officer. Someone said, "No, look at a picture." Is it possible?
It doesn't look like Branson at all.
It doesn't look like Branson at all.
Yeah, three actors played Branson in that show.
No, not Branson. The first officer, the other guy.
No, I don't think it was supposed.
So they brought in the Temporal Investigators.
The first officer, the first officer. 7.
See, I thought it was because then you had the people that Daniels worked for, which were even farther in time than the Voyager ones were. And
I don't know. What century is Daniels from?
Daniels was like the 32nd century or something.
Yeah. 30th.
Yeah.
30th.
So I mean, he didn't even have a time ship. He didn't even need a ship to travel through time. He traveled through with devices. But like the Aeon was this like shuttlecraft sized ship that was a time ship for a little bit earlier. So I mean it's neat stuff. There is a progression there, and I tended to think that because we did these guys, the first temporal agent and the second one we saw at the end of the episode didn't seem to travel on ships at all.
The Department of Temporal Investigations. I just looked it up.
Yeah, that was Dahmer and Luxley were members of that, but I do believe that.
Well, that's what she says in dialogue. I just listened to it.
Okay, well, it's that's secret.
And let's just be clear for Chief that Gates McFadden never played Branson.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Although you could remold her face to look a lot like him, I'm sure.
I can't stand that woman.
So, but yeah, so they do call themselves the Department of Temporal Investigations from the 29th century.
Okay.
And they do have handheld devices to jump through time.
So
are you sure they're from the 29th century?
They say it in dialogue, Daniel.
Yeah.
What, in the episode?
That's secret hideout too. I mean, again,
the new episode
yet. Seriously, in the episode?
Yes.
So Salty, TNG, with Picard meets the two agents that want that crystal. I forgot. They was Ryza.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, where were they from now?
I don't remember.
Look it up on Memory Alpha. What do you need us to spoon feed stuff for you?
What was the question? Ask again a bit more slowly, please. That was a really.
Captain's Holiday. The episode is called Captain's Holiday. It's got
26. The Vorgons. They are from the 26.
Vorgons, okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of time traveling shenanigans in Trek, but these guys obviously they're Federation time cops basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying.
Well, they so time. How come they going eating in TNG? Because they remember when Picard and them went back in time, so they could have changed that when the episode when Zeta got shot around, his head got hit up.
Time zero.
Because first of all, the interesting thing is, and they even mention this in the Voyager one. What's the one where they actually show the relativity?
Relativity.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. I get timey-wimey, but the in Relativity they actually talk about the fact that like when that Janeway, like when they send her back to capture Braxton before everything happened, to prevent anyone from knowing it happened, even the people on the Relativity. And I was sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute. If they can even change things to the point where the people on the Relativity don't know that it happened, then that means that there could be alternate versions of them.
Right.
Yeah. And so that means that there can still be more than one timeline with more than one set of Federation time cops protecting what they think is the prime timeline.
Right.
Okay. What about
Daniels was killed in his first appearance on Enterprise, but then came back several times, and he was very shady about what happened there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Okay. What about yesterday Enterprise?
And now he's Daniel's Hot Topics. So
Yeah, yesterday's Enterprise was what they called a predestination paradox, meaning it was only a timeline that existed briefly, and then it corrected itself. So I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, that's like
so you don't need time cops to fix that right there. So you're saying
no, because that whole timeline collapsed on itself because of the fact that the Enterprise C went back and prevented it from ever happening. Theoretically, but the problem is that if that timeline never happened, then Sela doesn't exist.
Right.
Which means that it did happen.
Yeah. So you think
it's a corkscrew.
Yeah.
So they should have came in and tried to fix that in, and stop Yar going back in time, or forward in time, whatever we call it, forward in time, back in that. They should have stepped in there and stopped Purple doing that.
Well, it just means that starting at the battle of what was it? The battle of Miranda.
Miranda 3.
Miranda 3.
Yep.
Miranda 3.
That's a divergent point in the timeline, where at one the prime timeline, the Enterprise C is destroyed, and however there are captives taken, including people from an alternate timeline. That alternate timeline is a timeline where the ship escaped, and the Klingons thought it was cowardice, and so they started a war over it, and the Federation was ultimately, in all probability, wiped out.
Well, the one thing they establish in Trials and Tribulations is that some things are acceptable and some things are not. Like, they're investigating what kind of time travel are we going to let pass, and what kind of time travel are we going to not let pass.
It was the best thing ever when Cisco said they were on the Defiant and they encountered the Enterprise, and both of them reluctantly said, "Be specific," and he told them which one, and they both sank back in their chairs going, "Oh, him." And they talk about how Kirk had like 17 separate temporal violations on his record, and all this kind of stuff. They were not pleased at all.
What about the last episode of Voyager? Admiral Janeway comes back.
You mean in Voyager Endgame?
Endgame, thank you. Yeah, where she comes back. Yeah,
she was from an alternate future.
Yeah, she was from an alternate, and she blatantly violated the temporal prime directive.
I think she said
extremely.
Yeah, I think
it's appropriate that Janeway would do that too, because
Janeway had this habit of pissing on the prime directive.
I have been watching SF Debris videos. I've been watching SF Debris videos, and I can't help but chuckle every time he does his impressions of insane Janeway.
Yeah. I think evil Janeway is evil.
I think she said hell with the temporal prime directive. Is that what she said?
Yeah, that was her exact quote, actually. The hell with it. And I'm sorry, but Janeway you see, Janeway is one of the most inconsistent characters in Trek, and that's one of the things that drove me crazy about Voyager, and one of the reasons I dislike Voyager as a series is that in one episode, Janeway is this stickler where the prime directive is gospel, and then in another episode, she's literally taking a crap on the prime directive and saying, "No, I'm perfectly willing to violate the prime directive in order to get us home."
Yeah, Michael, one question. Have you ever binge watched Voyager? Because I did that like a few months ago, and
I've never binge watched the series. No,
there's literally one episode where she says, our regulations make us who we are, and then 10 episodes later, we can't just stick to regulations just because a few bullies want to stop.
Yeah, that's the thing. She's all over the map, and the problem is that the writers are. It's like there's no sense of continuity. The writers just like whatever they feel like that week they do.
And plus, they make her like really soft and feminine in some episodes, and then there's real hard.
And then she's hard as nails in another.
Yeah, she calls herself a science officer, but she acts like she's not a science officer.
The ship Voyager also had a different design purpose in various episodes too. I mean,
it was a science vessel or a warship, depending on
warship. Yeah, depending on and again, it's.
How many shuttles and torpedoes did it have?
Well, what exactly can the Voyager deflector dish do?
Exactly.
The answer to anything.
Yeah. Especially in charge.
It is God mode. That's what it is.
It's the God ship.
With the shuttles and torpedoes, I can understand that, because if you binge watch it, you see all these little tiny scenes where they constantly, the sea plots, where they constantly hunt for resources that you normally would miss if you only watch it once a week.
Yeah.
Like they're constantly getting, that part I can understand.
if they showed us them building new torpedoes and looking for antimatter to put in them and things like that, just have it even just a throwaway line once in a while, I'd have been fine with that, but they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah, that would have been easier.
And those
every
same
episode looks
writers,
new.
those same writers hopped onto Enterprise, which is supposed to be a vastly inferior technological ship, and we never, I was always wondering, well, where are they getting their food? They don't have. They have. Yes, we know they have rudimentary food replicators, but I mean, they're saying that they most of their food is real, or it's what do they do? Keep it in a transporter buffer? I mean, and the show was written as if it was Voyager, where it and it wasn't. That ship was not supposed to have those kind of amenities.
Too high. Then you got to the right. I'm glad you said about the food, because one thing about it, they keep. Why did they carry a galley with Neelix in it, but yet you try to reserve all your powers on the warp engine and complain about we need supplies and stuff like that, but you got galley and Neelix burning fire right there.
I tended to think that one of the primary reasons why Neelix was given a galley was
a signed picture of Gates McFadden, and I will laugh so hard.
One of the reasons why I think that Neelix was given a galley was to help keep him out of trouble. And they had the replicators, but then you could also go there to see what he was serving, and that was kind of interesting. I kind of liked that they had that option. But I mean, but even on Voyager, they showed them stopping at different planets so that Neelix could grab some herbs that he knew grew there and things like that. Enterprise, they didn't show them doing one store's load. It would be interesting if they went to a Tellarite or a Rigelian station or something and had to acquire some foodstuffs,
or at least go back to Earth every once in a while to resupply.
Well, that's why I really like the fourth season, because the fourth season is how it should have been, where they had short little missions where they left Earth, went out, came back, left Earth.
Right.
They didn't go out on this continuous, mission where they never, where they leave Earth behind for years at a time. That's, because that's kind of what made Kirk's 5-year mission so special, was that they were out there for 5 years.
The 5-year mission was a big deal because the Constitution class was the first ship really built that could do it.
Right.
And
that really bothers me. The fourth season of Enterprise, it bothers me because that was the first time they did a soft reboot where everything before didn't happen. The Xindi don't exist anymore. The temporal Cold War doesn't exist anymore. All the fans that the show had until then doesn't matter. We are just going to do member berries and references to previous Star Trek shows. And
it became a prequel at that point. In season 4, the show actually started becoming a real prequel. They started lighting the sets in ways.
And that's how the ratings went down. Because the show had things.
The ratings kept going up. It wasn't going fast
the writers said, let's do a prequel to Star Trek. They finally said that. They finally said, let's do stories that are actually going to be followed up on later in TOS.
I think the problem.
And the ratings went. So
I think that Darren and John, I think you both have valid points. I think that season 4 was honestly the best season of Enterprise, but I think that the radical departure from what they did prior to it was kind of jarring because there wasn't a good explanation for it. They didn't resolve the temporal Cold War. They just kind of said, "Nah, whatever. We're going to hand wave it off and move on." And
I agree.
And what they really needed to do was actually resolve it and do something with it, because and the thing is that was something original they could deal with. And in fact, that's something I'm hoping that they might, because since it was actually mentioned in this week's episode of Strange New Worlds, I'm hoping that it comes back. I'm hoping that we get more on it. I want to see more about the temporal, these temporal incursions,
Yeah.
and why we're in an alternate reality and what's going on.
What you're talking about is like super easy. It's barely an inconvenience to put
Yeah.
it in.
Super easy,
Well,
barely an inconvenience.
Yeah, and I, again, Strange New Worlds. I know you didn't want people coming on and complimenting Strange New Worlds, but I do like looking at the show. Even if I don't like the episode or anything about it, at least I get to see those nice sets, things like that. The atmosphere.
I think they're terrible. They look like a gym. They look like a gym.
I mean, as much as I would love for them to have recreated the Cage, Enterprise, I would have loved that, especially if they could put things on the screen that actually.
Yeah, Darren, do you know that? Do you know that joke that we did on the in the comment section of the Major Grin channel that the reason they don't wear miniskirts like on TOS is because all the floors are reflective, and all the guys would just go.
All the guys would be scared of the floor.
It would be very interesting to see some of these female actors in the mini skirts that Gene Roddenberry liked.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I like the. That's what the one thing I liked about that theater episode where they were in like that fantasy land where that Mabenga gives his child away freely to some alien. For whatever reason, because fuck his child, just give it to some alien.
First of all, I don't like the way people dismiss that episode. Like, Mbanga literally just said, "Hey, look, an alien. You want my kid?" That's not how the story went.
Literally how it is.
That is not literally how it went.
No, hold on.
Technically, that's how it went.
No, that is not technically how it went.
Michael, you have been the same kind of reductive for other things that you didn't like. So I want to point that out before you correct.
You know what? I understand, but I understand your point there, Darren. Yes, sometimes I get a little salty about stuff, but I'm still holding my ground on this particular episode because this is one that it drives me nuts because people try to say that Mbanga was just like joyfully handing off his kid like it was nothing.
He was.
And that's not the case. His kid was dying. Right. His kid was terminal, and there was no cure anywhere in the galaxy that was known. Even that super advanced race, the guy said this isn't a cure, but it might lead to one. The super advanced race that was sacrificing children that had ultra medicine. Which
they stole the story from.
Yeah, but they find these weird alien nebula things, and they can actually cure her.
How would you know?
However, the catch is she has to live with them.
How would you know they can cure her? They just say it.
The problem with Strange New
Sometimes
Worlds.
you got to take a leap of faith, brother. Sometimes you got to trust your gut. And you know what? She's gonna freaking die.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that resolution.
She literally had days to live. Did you understand that?
It's stasis. The next day he could have discovered advanced aliens who can cure her. Instead, he gives her to some people who say they can cure her. And he has to take their word for it.
That would have been the darkest shit ever if the very next episode they meet aliens that could have just fixed it.
That would have been Babylon 5.
The problem with Strange New Worlds is they're not really exploring Strange New Worlds. That's what I want to see. Real explorer. They keep saying we'll explore, but God, do it. Finally, I will never see one episode that actually explore Strange New Worlds. Seek out something.
That planet that they visited that was partly owned by the Klingons and partly owned by the Federation, that was an interesting looking planet.
Yeah.
It reminded me, though, the arrangement, it's not quite the same arrangement as Sherman's planet from Trouble with Tribbles, but it was reminiscent of that, the idea that Klingons and people were essentially competing on this planet.
Isn't it like that Andor Vulcan planet?
Yeah, but we've seen all that. We've seen all that before, but I'm just saying. I think it's time we see something new. See, out there.
That was something new. We've never seen that before.
Yeah,
That's what
but
I'm
I'm
saying.
talking about. Yeah, we still see Klingons. We still see the Dorn. I'm talking about go out there and see.
Well, you know what? I'm
different
sorry.
species.
You know what? If they did something totally different, people would say, "Where are the Klingons? Where are the Andorians?"
We always
No, no, I'm serious. Here's the problem. No matter what they do, this is exactly the problem. No matter what they do, people are going to bitch. No matter what they do, if they do something totally different, totally new, people are going to say, "Where the hell are our legacy races?" If they bring in a legacy race, people say they're not doing it the way I want them to do it.
I think we.
If it's good, they could get away with it.
We be seeing Klingons.
I think right now. I think it is good. They first of all they course corrected the Klingons. You know, and I mean, let's be real. These Klingons are acting like Klingons. They look like Klingons.
Acting like Klingons? This?
These are freaking Klingons.
They didn't look like they're supposed to still, though.
You know, these are TOS era Klingons.
I mean, they are not TOS era Klingons. They are TMP/TNG era Klingons. They don't look like the TOS. They don't look like.
No, I don't mean that they look like the TOS smoothheads. I mean that this is the TOS era, and they're acting like TOS era Klingons, and that they are rowdy and you know, just basically.
You know, they could have saved so much more money if they would have just given us the weird Russians with Mexican makeup.
I agree.
You know?
I totally agree, but they need, and they should do that. And Professor Brady Specs, I begged you to come on the panel.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. Don't complain in the chat. Come on the panel. That's what the panel's for.
Actually, Darren, I want to talk more about your idea that, like, in episode 7, Dr. Mbenga gets his daughter to the nebula aliens, and then in episode 8. They find a race who say, we could have cured her, and the nebula aliens, they are like soul-sucking space vampires. That would have been such an amazing story.
That would have been dark, but it also would have been vaguely reminiscent of McCoy's father from Star Trek V, where he pulled the plug, and then like a week later they found a cure. His dad could have lived for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
you know, there would have been comparisons drawn there, but it would have been dark. I mean, it would have been really freaking dark if he had done that.
Anyway, you know what? I want to see, because remember this takes place prior to Kirk, but we are in an alternate timeline. And what we do know right now, based on what we saw in the first episode of this season, is that something big is brewing near Cestus. Mm-hmm. And it looks like and I do think that's why people are saying, oh, this season is sucking because there's not a lot of action and it's just you know what, they're just like shows do, they're saving their budget right now because I think big explosions are coming.
Yeah, we'll get her. We'll get there definitely.
Yeah,
there was even a suggestion I saw somewhere on a message board that said that maybe the Gorn that we're seeing here are themselves a temporal Cold War faction from the Gorn's future, and that's why they're somewhat different than what we're used to.
You see, the funny thing is, and I don't know if you saw my little thing that I played at the beginning.
I did,
but. Yeah. I don't think these Gorn are even if forget about. I know that obviously this is an alternate timeline now. We've kind of established that with this last episode, but even if it was,
they really? Okay.
Huh? Yes, they did. With the latest episode, yes, we have established we're in an alternate timeline.
Oh, really? I have to check it out then.
Yeah, but even if it wasn't an alternate timeline, I don't think there's any violation with the Gorn. And I'm gonna do a full-on video about that.
I tend to agree with you that the Gorn might actually be. There might be so many different varieties of Gorn. We only happen to see one or two so far.
Well, keep this in mind. First of all, Trulita, thank you very much. $9.99 says Gold Ducat did nothing wrong. I love you, Trulita, but I can't really agree with you on that. But thank you for the $10. I do truly appreciate that. Here's
guys. Why. Okay, I got to roll. I'll talk to you guys later. Okay.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
But
hold on. Let me play this because Darren, I'm assuming you didn't see it, right?
I heard it. I was actually taking a leak or a shit or something when you were playing that, but I had my headset on.
But you know what the Gorn looked like in the original series, the animated series, Enterprise, and then
there's a way to make it all work, and I'm fine with that.
Well, but here's the funny thing, is that what we're looking at is the same creature at different ages.
Yeah, possibly.
Because the Gorn we see in Strange New Worlds is literally a day old. The Gorn
has a tail too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has a tail, but so do tadpoles.
Right. You're right. So
you know,
yeah, we don't know. The life cycle may be very different. You're right.
Right, and so a baby Gorn, just like an infant human, doesn't look like an adult human.
Right.
You know, an infant Gorn has a tail, walks on all fours, and is working on pure instinct. And as far as their life cycle is concerned, first of all, it's not the same as the xenomorph from Alien, which is
the way they shoot it, though. I think
I know the way they shoot it makes it seem kind of like it. I get that, but it's not.
You're right. These are reptiles, not whatever the xenomorphs are.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's based actually more on actual real world creatures like wasps. And I actually do have the footage for the video I'm producing of a wasp that lays its eggs inside of caterpillars, and the eggs develop under the skin of the caterpillar, eating the caterpillar from the inside and eventually bursting out, just like the Gorn do.
Michael, just one thing. Do you realize how, to someone who hasn't watched it, how not like Star Trek that sounds that you talk about?
I know but that's we're not talking about. This isn't the focus of the episode. This is just like one quick shot that you see, and people are like making a big deal out of. And the funny thing is, they compare this to a guy in a rubber suit, and they're saying, "Oh my God, they ruined the Gorn." You know,
they didn't ruin him. They kind of expanded on him a little bit, but I'm hoping that they tie it all together. Now, on Discovery, we saw a classic Gorn skeleton in Dipshit's office, and
but then later we find out he's from the Mirror Universe, which could explain why.
Well, I don't think he would have taken that skeleton with him. But I mean, the thing is, though, at least we have some physical evidence that there are ones like the one Kirk fought there. And you're absolutely right. It could be a life cycle. There was a conjectural novel about the Gorn that was released several years ago that said that they were kind of like the Xindi. They were all reptiles from the same planet, but some of them were based off of alligators, some were based off of snakes, and that the one that Kirk fought actually was from the lowest caste and was actually like only half the size of a full-grown Gorn. It was really weird stuff that they went into. I mean, again, conjectural, but what John was talking about, we're used to Star Trek aliens being portrayed by actors in makeup, typically, bumps on their foreheads, special ears, a blue or green skin. But there is a precedent for extremely non-human aliens in Star Trek. The Horta, I believe, was what it was called, where it was the No Kill Me or whatever, No Kill I.
No Kill I, yeah.
And it's basically a couple of guys under a blanket. But I mean, but I mean, they could do something really cool with that today with CG and stuff. But,
I think I have seen Star Trek before, but that's not really my point. It's the tone.
Okay.
It's the tone of the show.
Well,
I mean, we had the Shellyak 2 and the crystalline entity, and
the Tholians might be just as nasty, in their life cycle. We don't know very much about them either.
Let me ask you this, John. I didn't mean to cut you off, Darren, but let me ask you this, John. When you look at the original series, would you not agree that the original series, throughout its seasons, had different episodes that took radically different tones? They had comedic episodes. They actually had episodes that were based on horror, episodes based on Westerns, episodes that were pure action episodes that were philosophical, episodes that were mysteries. Would you agree with that?
That was actually the point I was trying to make to you in the chat in your Battlestar Galactica review, that Battlestar Galactica, the remake, only has one tone, and
Well, that's
Star Trek
Galactica.
has many. Star
Right.
Trek has many, yes, definitely.
Okay.
Like
Strange New Worlds is doing the same thing. It's
and I get what you're saying. Like for example, one episode of TNG that is for some reason hated by many, but that I really like is
Parallels?
the one where Deanna Troi is flying, Night Terrors. I really enjoy that episode.
Yeah, that was creepy.
It has like that scene where Beverly Crusher is in the sick bay and suddenly all the corpses get up.
Yeah, the morgue.
Where they all can't get REM sleep.
Bay. Yeah.
And they all go psycho. Like
was
that's a real horror episode, and I definitely like that.
Can I ask you something, Michael?
Yeah.
They're saying that next week Spock drops an F-bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's going to be transformed through the power of science fiction writing into a full human, or something akin to that.
Right.
And that his reaction is WTF, and we know from your reviews of Picard seasons 1, 2, and 3 that you have you take umbrage with that kind of language.
Yes. I will take umbrage with that if that is true.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping he'll say something else, but
If that is true, then yes, I will have a problem with that. Now, as far as will it, ruin the episode for me, depends on the quality of the rest of the episode, but it will definitely ruin that moment. So when we review it on the Nerdfights that night, that will definitely reduce my score of the episode. So like, let's say the episode was an 8 out of 10, I would probably end up giving it a 7 out of 10 if they actually drop an F-bomb in it, because I do not think that kind of language belongs in Trek.
I agree.
I think it should be kept to a minimum. I think that it was fine in Star Trek 4 when they came to basically our world, and there were a couple of people who said things to him.
That was different. Star Trek 4, I'll give an exception to, but
sheer bleeping hubris was so gratuitously wrong.
No, F-bombs in Trek, absolutely never.
Yeah,
I'm like a person who swears a lot, and I like a lot of shows where there's a lot of swearing, but not in Star Trek. That just doesn't.
No, it
just doesn't fit.
It depends on the show, but in like
Deadpool,
I'm not crude. Like I like a wide variety of shows. Some of them are dark and adult, some of them are light and family friendly. And Star Trek needs to be light and family friendly.
Exactly.
And that's one of my big problems with most of quote unquote modern Trek. That's my biggest problem and my only major problem with Lower Decks is how adult it gets. Because I actually really enjoy Lower Decks, but I don't like the fact that it gets so crass with its humor, because I wish it was a family friendly show, because I think I do think it's really funny. But Picard, I absolutely despise because of the language and the dark tone. And with Discovery, do I really need to say anything about it?
No.
Yeah, I liked that they established, at least in the TNG movies, that the TNG crew were aware of the existence of words like this. Their culture thought it was too uncouth and beneath them, and they,
right.
It would be like me using a word. They were also thought of as ancient words that have no meaning in their current culture. It'd be like me using a term like jackanapes, or something like that. Nobody knows what that means anymore, and it's actually not very nice. So it's like that. But for them, all of a sudden,
the thing that is weird though is that Picard says merde twice in season 1 of TNG, which is like shit in French.
Right. you know, if they had said something, and I think the perfect place to do it would have been in Picard 3 with the Shaw character talking about how, you know, even just casually mentioning how language has degraded since the Dominion War or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, to just make light of the fact that, you know, it hasn't always been like this, and we used to be able to do things without adding a you know, an expletive in them. I think that would have helped a little bit. You know, again, the language
Yeah, like, boy,
bothered
the
me.
war has sure changed our table manners, hasn't it?
Right. You know, and you know, the language bothered me, but not enough for me to not enjoy the show. But I did recognize. It's like I preferred it when Shaw did it to Picard doing it. You know what I mean? You know, his talking about being in the shuttle for 14 bleeping hours, which was not even supposed to be in there, but apparently it was a you know, going to be an outtake, and then they decided at the last minute to keep it in.
Yeah, but Darren, but that's the thing in general was the Dominion War, and when Voyager returned, they returned with inside a Borg ship, and the Borg attack before in First Contact. They could have used it in Picard, like as an explanation for why everything is so dark. Everybody is so riled up by all these catastrophes happening.
Right.
That's why everything is so dark. They could have just mentioned that.
I'm going to say this because, and I'm gonna pinch myself for saying this, but Lower Reloaded actually made a very good point about the Dominion War one time. He said that all the peacetime officers got killed, you know, within the first year or two of the Dominion War, and they were replaced by more battle-hardened officers. And I think that you could extrapolate from that idea and explain why Starfleet in general has become much more, I'll be honest, more like a bunch of sailors.
Yeah, as they said it on screen.
I have a question, especially you, Sauce. You probably answer this about Picard. On first season, when that scene where Picard goes to the CNC, and this is not your house anymore. Is she saying that, I don't know, was Picard chief operation officer or something like that, or when we came in?
She just means that he doesn't have any authority anymore. He's not, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Picard's day is done.
Okay. I was wondering. I was thinking. Yeah, I know. I was thinking. You know, maybe she had that job before she got it, and we said, "So you ran the house."
You know what? I will tell you that everything about Admiral Pottyface just offends me. So
I didn't care for her either. But you know, I want to mention something. There's a pretty good Star Trek YouTuber out there called Orange River. I don't know if you've seen
I've seen him
or not. Yeah, he did a pretty good. This is neither here nor there, but he did a pretty good video today on the Caitians, which is a race that I know exists in the animated series, and then there were some cameos in some of the movies and things like that. But I was actually kind of fascinated by that because
getting back to Tokyo.
Getting back to the idea that most of the aliens are people in makeup, you know, we can get away from that now. I mean, one of the things that was so original about Voyager, and they didn't really do a whole lot with it, was the species 8472. You know, and the idea of having this tripedal CGI race that was going to be essentially replacing the Borg as the number one big bad in their part of space. And I would like to see more of that. I think the Gorn, them doing what is so far looking like a redesign, but may evolve into just a passing familiarity design, is a step in that right direction here for this show's identity. There's usually a signature alien for every Star Trek show. Vulcans.
Yeah, it's true.
TOS1, TNG. I would say that their signature race was probably the redesigned Romulans or the Borg. Voyager started out with the Kazon, but then adopted the Borg. But then they adopted species 8472, and Enterprise, of course, had the Andorians. Their redesign of the Andorians is sort of their signature race, the one that you always look forward to seeing and such. If the redesign or the new design or the revealed design of the Gorn become Strange New Worlds' new signature race, I'm fine with that.
Well, don't forget the Klingorks for Discovery.
No, we will be forgetting the clean ones. I'm sorry, but that show didn't even maintain continuity within.
I know
episode. It was so mechanically clunky, and just the scene where, and I made a video on this, where Reese detects a cloaked Klingon battlecruiser entering the atmosphere of a planet. And he's like, or entering the orbit of a planet. It's like, and everybody, okay, great, and then they go back. We have to figure out how to detect these ships through the cloaking field, and it's like the guy just told you he did it. It's
yeah. If you know that there's a cloaked ship approaching, you can detect them
on a long range sensor. You didn't have to get close to be able to do it.
Who is Reese? Is that the Asian guy or the black guy?
Well, he's actually Canadian. He has a Swedish first name and a French last name, but he's clearly Canadian. He's an Asian. Yeah, Patrick Kwok Chung was the name of the actor, and he was one of those signature guys who seems to be on the show just to get shit on by the female characters. We've seen this a couple times already this season with the technicians that come on board Enterprise wanting to do diagnostics and refits and things of stations, and the female characters are giving them a hard time. We saw another one with Una's JAG attorney, who just seemed to be there to get snapped at by her, and told that basically he didn't know his own profession. So yeah, Reese was one of these guys. He was the tactical officer.
Well, on Discovery, everybody was just extras.
Well, yeah, especially in the first season, we didn't hardly know any of their names. I mean, some of them were actually quite interesting. I liked Awashakun a lot. I thought she was kind of interesting, and the Detmer, the one that had the cybernetic implants after she was,
I just know the actress. I just know the actress who played the hooker in The Expanse season 1. The Nilsson in Star Trek Discovery. She played the hooker in The Expanse season 1, who was teaching the colleague of Thomas Jane how to speak Belter. What was the name of the actress? That was the same actress.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. I didn't catch that.
Tall, skinny Russian girl, right?
Yeah, I never put two and two together there. And now so let me say this. I know that obviously it's more than a coincidence that there's a large number of female protagonists on the show. I'm not stupid. That being said, when I say that my judgment of a show is based on the quality of the story and the characters in the episode, I try to stick to that. And so far, I've enjoyed Strange New Worlds. So I don't give a damn about the fact that there's a large number of women on the show. And as far as the engineers coming onto the bridge and, saying, hey, we're going to, why you have these controls reversed? Hey, I need to take your station offline and stuff. Well, if you've ever been in a technical position where engineers come in and want to redo your stuff, you know that that's a real world scenario. And so I had absolutely no problem with that scene because I have been at the receiving end of engineers doing that. Now, now I get it. Yes, the engineers were men. However, almost the entire bridge crew is women. The only ones that aren't are Spock and Pike, and neither of them were there.
Here's where I differ on that. Okay. Uhura acted like she didn't know what the guy was going to do. They had to know that when they pulled in, that they were going to have to relinquish that equipment, and she didn't want to have her station rebooted or whatever, taken offline. And I'm having a problem with Uhura's newfound attitude of this season. I liked her better when she was a cadet, but
she hasn't had much to do, to be honest.
And with Ortega, we kind of expect that, but she didn't really give the guy a hard time. He tried to give her a hard time, and he blew her off. She blew him off, which I think was appropriate because he was kind of effeminate, kind of bitchy. it's totally irregular, whatever. Fuck you. I'm the one who uses this thing. I'm the one whose life depends on this machine, right?
Right.
And so I was totally on Ortega's
I
side.
think Ortega's had a better interaction. I'll agree with you there. I like the Ortega's interaction better than the Uhura interaction, but at the same time, I think that as far as those interactions were concerned, being a person who's been in an engineering field, I hate it when other engineers come in and they think they know what you need more than you do.
Well, I have experience in this as well from a naval perspective, because when a submarine pulls in, or any naval ship, and it's time for the shore guys to take over, that is no longer your console. You are relieved, and granted, these consoles on the Enterprise are probably a lot more customizable than the stuff we had on board ship. Right. And I get that. They might change your desktop. Things like that. Well, but still, I mean, I think Uhura should have known better. She should have been prepared. And it rubbed me the wrong way, but not enough.
One of those guys.
It rubbed me the wrong way, but not enough to really hurt the whole episode as a whole. It was just one of those sticking points.
Okay.
Like one of those things. We need to all be clear. 1 second, that we are not like on a Geeks and Gamers live stream. Nobody's talking about agenda or conspiracy or anything like
right.
Like you said, there are an unproportional number of overly capable female characters. Like that is true, but
we don't have any Burnhams on the show.
Yet that is definitely true.
Yeah, all right, Chief. I know you're dying to say something. What is it, Chief?
Well, I am one of those guys that actually does that. No, I'm like I should be a wise mate.
So you come in and change people's stuff and piss
but I explain to them. I sit down and I talk to these people. What's wrong? They give me information, but I don't just go out there and give them no attitude or anything like that. No, I talk to them one-on-one, because sometimes they work with us to figure out solve the problem. That's what it's all about. But not going there like who you think you are, blah blah blah. Like that has happened occasionally, but literally, but they still we come on and do a job and just like that. But we have people like actually done that. Because they're scared things change, because we had new technology coming in, like the internet was coming in, stuff like that, new wiring, you got new interface, fiber, and stuff like that. So people need to understand it. But we do explain what the hell we're going to do, and if you need to know, because they do get a book anyway. They get a book and read like that. But what Hero done, that has happened. Don't mess this, don't do this. I'm be watching
that's
you.
Because
like that.
You know what? Yeah. When I'm working on special projects and I'm developing something for a company like Comcast or Verizon, and literally millions, or in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment is depending on what I'm doing. I don't want some bloody engineer coming in and screwing up my workstation and making it more difficult for me to get this project done.
Well, first thing we always do, we always talk to who's the person in charge, the supervisor or the XO, wherever we're trying to department. That's first thing. So that should be clear between you and your commanding officer supervisor. That's first.
Well, you don't have commanding officers in the private sector, but
I know. I'm talking about on board ship like that, but I'm talking like that board ship like that.
Right, but I'm talking about in the private sector. Yeah, I'd never been on a ship.
I do want to say that this version of Starfleet we're seeing is like the most lax non-military version I've seen.
Yeah,
but Michael, have you ever been on the receiving end of you being the idiot? Like someone came in and corrected you on something, and then you notice, shit, I've been doing it all wrong all the time. Thank you. Like that can happen too.
It can, and I've learned if they say, oh well, you can do it this way and it's a lot faster, and I'd be like, oh wow, cool, thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same, which is great if they sit down and show you stuff like that. But what sucks is when and what tended to happen was I would have a couple of days off and I'd come back and my entire workstation was just rearranged. and all of a sudden, equipment that I'm using has been either removed, reconfigured, or replaced with different equipment. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And how am I supposed to use this instead of the the test equipment I was using before, which is calibrated for what I'm and so without getting into too much detail as to what I was doing, you get the idea. There are certain things on a workstation that the person becomes intimately aware of, and if you change it all, then now the person has to relearn their own job.
Yeah, but that kind of goes back to Starfleet being a military organization, because being in the military, you just kind of get spoon-fed things that just screw you up all the
not
time.
necessarily. See, that's the problem. The military, look, and I know that the Navy is not the Army and not the Marine Corps and not the Air Force, but in the military, the only major difference is that people can pull rank on you. That's they basically say no, this is going to happen, and
Well, I didn't think Uhura was being very professional, and she is an ensign. So that guy, meaning she's at the very bottom of the officer ranks, which means that guy was either her peer or superior, and I just didn't.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, Uhura should have had more respect. I will agree. Now she was technically correct in that they did need to have at least an emergency comm system up, and he was the one being slack there. He was like, "Oh, come on, Starbase will pick up anything," But I'm sure that by the book, according to the regs, the starship has to have an open comm channel at all times.
Lon was depending on it, so yeah.
That's the same way with Leon and Kirk. Kirk outranks her, but he still treating her like you just a junior officer or something like that. You barely hear her say sir to him. On occasion on that last episode. So
he was captain on that episode.
Yeah, I know he was captain, but as soon as they came on that planet, she just like I know he was out his fish out of water thing, but still you need to have he's still a senior officer.
There was
got to give him some credit.
They weren't serving in the same fleet.
Or you just want to be in charge. God.
He was serving in the United Earth Fleet, and she's from Starfleet. Two very different things.
Yeah.
But and symbolically, when they threw their uniforms in the trash, that there was a reason why they showed them doing
right.
That was a thematic thing,
Yeah, I figured we'll do that. I thought why someone can't catch.
I was shocked at how this alternate Kirk did not seem to have Prime Kirk's supernatural luck, and the Romulan shot him.
Yeah,
it's like
that caught me off guard too. It's
I'm like that can happen.
Yeah.
Did you
actually catch a bullet?
Did you think that?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, first of all, I liked how in this episode they kind of explained why the timeline's different, right? And however they blamed it on the temporal wars. There's been many different temporal Cold Wars, not just one, right?
Yeah, well,
I like that, and how they explained how time is like a box or something. It's like a big black box, and it's got many different sides or something or whatever. My question is, and they should answer if the original timeline still exists. Because it couldn't just blink out of existence. It can't do that.
Look, can you watch the original series still?
Yes.
Okay, the original timeline still exists.
Yeah, but I want them to say that in the show.
No, can you watch the original series?
Yes.
Okay, the original timeline still exists.
Yeah, it's
and
also if you watch Parallels,
it still exists.
Yeah, I know, but I think
don't worry about it. It exists.
Everything.
It exists.
Okay. Right underneath Star Trek: Strange New Worlds in Paramount Plus, there's this other icon. It has William Shatner on it, and it says Star Trek: The Original Series. I'm sorry, Daniel.
It still exists. Unless Paramount goes around and deletes every copy of the original series ever existed, it still exists.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't stress over it.
Because I was talking to somebody one time, and I was like saying, do you think the original timeline still exists? And they're like, oh, you can't destroy a universe or a timeline.
Can you watch TNT?
What?
Can you watch Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I'm just thinking about this. Do you think that? They're doing this because they want to. What was that, Darren?
Here's where Daniel's coming from. Do you remember what happened in 1986 in the world of comics, Michael?
Yeah. Well, they rebooted
Crisis.
They rebooted the DC universe, and there were a lot of people who didn't like that because the issues they'd collected since they were kids all of a sudden didn't happen going forward.
Right.
And so, Dick Giordano was confronted at a convention by a fan who actually says, are you going to buy back all my issues of Superman because none of those adventures ever happened? And Dick Giordano is like, well, they never happened even before 1986. So, and you didn't buy them to become an expert on Superman lore. You bought them for entertainment. So no, we're not going to be buying back your back issues. But that was the kind of stuff that he was dealing with. And so I think that maybe Daniel's concerned, and I know you're raising your finger, John. I see you, but
Nick Sheldon.
You have to pee? I mean, what's going on? Go ahead. All right, I guess I'm done. But you got what I was going for there.
Yeah. All right, John. What?
Darren, you know what happened in 1987 when TNG started? They rebooted the Star Trek: The Role-Playing Game universe, which established like a whole history of the Klingons and a whole history of the Romulans. And fans were really pissed about that at the time because the Star Trek pen and paper role-playing games had a really established history of those races. People were pissed then that it was already erased.
Yeah, they got into it. They really liked it, and then all of a sudden it wasn't official anymore, and all that information was not going to be used going forward. I understand. It's like when people are grow up thinking that. Trying to think of a good historical thing like. George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and told his father that he did it and didn't tell a lie. People want to believe that story, but then historians come along later in life and say, well, actually, that probably didn't happen. And
fucking historians.
And you're like, screw you, it happened. I was a kid. I loved, that's, I'm just pulling that out of my butt. But, I mean, it's like that. I do want to say, though, that I loved the line, and when we found out that woman turned out to be this deranged, time-traveling Romulan and that's been surgically altered, when she talks about how everything is changing all the time and how she was supposed to assassinate Khan in 1992, but the eugenics war kept moving forward in time, and here they are at some we're obviously not in the 90s in this episode. I thought that, and it was very obviously driving her crazy when she says that. She says it almost in a maniacal way.
Right.
I thought that was a great little touch.
Yes, I made it clear they're in the mid 21st century.
Right. And all this was supposed to happen in the 90s, and according to what we were told in Space Seed and Wrath of Khan. And that's what she apparently was expecting, and she's been there living as a human being this whole time, waiting to be able to get in there to assassinate.
All right, Chief, you need to change that. I keep telling you to change that icon because
Can I say something? I saw a tweet. I didn't see the episode yet, so I'm kind of speaking in the darkness. But the way Robert Meyer Burnett, and I know we talked about him earlier, he's like, they keep pushing forward. When the eugenics wars happened from the 90s, they keep pushing it forward because they have to adjust because of real history. But his argument is that Star Trek is not about, constantly updating based on our history. It was written as a futurist. It's a fictional future history that started back in the 60s. It doesn't have to line up with the way the 90s actually was. You know,
What
it doesn't have to line
I
up.
watched Burnett's video.
Okay, I didn't see the video, but I just saw his tweet. I saw his tweet.
Yeah, but you're just regurgitating what he said in the video.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet, but you know what I mean? It's like, why does Kurtzman feel the need to like
because
push everything
because
forward?
you know what, this is where I disagree with Burnett on this, because if you push the eugenics into the future, then it preserves the fantasy that it could happen. It preserves the fantasy that Trek could happen in the future. If you say that the eugenics wars was back in the 1990s in this alternate history of Earth, then it breaks the idea that Star Trek is our future, that Star Trek is a potential future for humanity, and instead it just becomes fantasy. And the funny thing is, Burnett also says in the same video, Star Trek is not fantasy. Well, it is if the frickin' war is in the past.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt your chat. I just wanted to.
No, that's okay, Mercer. But that, I think that's a fair point, and that's something that I do want to deconstruct, because I think that Burnett
I'm not sure where I stand
is
now.
Totally wrong about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you guys think I'm crazy about that, Darren? What do you think?
Well, honestly, I have thought about this before. I thought, well, would it have been any better if Star Trek had embraced a retro science fiction world where, you know, the look of the original series, you know, is where, you know, so let's say they made the J.J. Abrams or this show, and they adhered strictly to all of the materials and the designs of the TV show from the 1960s and maybe extrapolated on them a little bit. And at first I thought it was kind of a neat idea, but no, in the end, I don't have a problem with Star Trek having a let's just call it a
facelift,
a sliding,
a Gates McFadden lift.
Yeah.
Don't mention that woman.
A sliding timeline is what I would call it.
Right.
Where the eugenics wars just kind of get bumped, and we're supposed to overlook the dates that Khan gives us and things like that. That will work for me. It's fine.
Hold on a second, Chief, because it looked like John wanted to say something. John?
Like Mercer said, that Robert Meyer Burnett said that Star Trek doesn't have to line up with the 90s the way they were, but it can, because it's Star Trek, and why couldn't it? I mean, it's Star Trek. You can change.
Right. You can change anything you want.
Yeah, it's flexible. It's science fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's science fiction. I mean, anybody has seen. I mean, most people, most of us nerdy people have seen Doctor Who, and
I wasn't taking his side. I was kind of just asking.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
no. That's good, Mercer. You sparked an interesting conversation, Mercer. Yeah. Okay, so take a side. What do you think?
Well, I kind of think I kind of am leaning toward your side. But at the same time, you know, in the back of my mind, one of the things I love about movies is that I know that they're not real. Like, and that kind of is part of that attracts me to movies. Sure. Like, I know that when you're even in a dramatic movie where you know, that's not how courtrooms work, for example.
Right.
Like that, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I've talked to enough lawyers that it's never the way it works. So the idea of Star Trek not being exactly lining up with our own history doesn't bug me, but I see your point. So I can't really take a side, but I don't mind if Star Trek doesn't line up with our history. I don't mind.
Think about it this way, and this is kind of why I like the idea of pushing it forward, although I personally think they didn't push it far enough, because they really pushed Baby Khan from since they said mid 21st century, I'm going to guess somewhere around the 2030s, 2040s maybe. But the let's just say 2050 to be as radically forward as we can. But the that might be far enough for a generation. But the problem is, I want you to think about a great old sci-fi movie, right? And I've seen them a million. I love classic sci-fi, but what I hate is I'll be sitting there watching sci-fi and they'll say in the distant future of 1997. You know, and that just immediately breaks it. You know, you're just like, okay, I'm done. You know,
okay. The Berman era ran into this problem in 1996 when they had a two-parter episode called Future's End on Voyager, where the crew traveled back to 1996, and somebody
there was
pointed
no
out
eugenics wars.
Yeah,
that wouldn't they be right in the middle of the eugenics wars? And of course, Rick Berman was like, well, what do you know about the eugenics wars other than the name and a couple of scant details from lines, you know, and basically what ended up happening was Berman personally commissioned a novel to be written. Again, novels are not canon, even back in the 90s weren't considered.
Yeah, novels were never really considered canon.
But at least it gives an idea that the eugenics war was kind of like what we would call the Cold War today. There was no actual war in the Cold War. There was a couple of different hotspots. There was a general sense of detente, and that all the stuff that Spock talked about happened on the other side of the world, and that it was clandestine, meaning that yes, Khan at one point ruled, you know, whatever it was, 2/3 of the world, but you know, it was one of those secret cabal kind of deals. It wasn't like he was an overt dictator.
Just to point out, it does seem kind of hard to reconcile lines like whole populations were being bombed out of existence. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah. and you know that could be happening in deepest Africa. We wouldn't necessarily know about it, things like that. But that was how they reconciled that.
Right.
And it was a nice temporary fix, I thought, just to that conjectural thing. But then later on Deep Space Nine, Ronald Moore made a mistake and actually reset the eugenics wars about 100 years in the future, so closer to the end of the 21st century, in a dialogue. And then he went online and said, oops, that date's wrong. Then Enterprise restored it by talking about the eugenics wars in their proper context where they originally were supposed to happen, as part of their three-parter. But yeah,
Darren, I actually thought about that novel you're talking about, the Eugenics Wars, the Rise and Fall of Khan Noonien Singh.
Right.
That is actually the ideal thing for Alex Kurtzman, who's started with like a show like Fringe. Like he always did like conspiracy theory stuff. That would actually have been the perfect story for him to adapt, because he always did like.
They might be going there with Baby Khan and stuff. You never know. They might be going there for a future show.
That was actually how Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi started with all that conspiracy stuff, like Fringe.
I actually dug Fringe. Yeah. I thought it was a fun show.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, there's also the idea. Have you ever read the book The Boys from Brazil?
I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
You know what the plot is, though, right? What the secret at the end of the book is that
I know the movie.
Aren't they like Hitler clones or something?
They cloned Hitler a whole bunch of times, and there were all these boys playing at the school, and they were all clones of Hitler. I thought, what if they did something like that with Khan, where
I know the movie. Is it like the book? Is the movie like the book?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah, I mean, there's a Nazi hunter, that tracks, some people down to Argentina or wherever they're, Chile, and finds this enclave of the Nazis that still exists, and there are 6 or 7 little boys there that are all Hitler.
Yeah.
And
do they have little mustaches and
no, they don't. No. But I thought, since it's scientists that essentially created Khan anyway, he was a genetically engineered tyrant, why wouldn't they make more than one of him?
Right.
That's the idea. And the idea that maybe that accounts for some of the variations in Khan, that kind of idea.
Well, I'm assuming you didn't see my live stream last night then.
I did not.
Who did?
I talked about this in some detail last night, but I'm going to wait until at the request of Jason and Danny. I'm actually going to wait until the end of the season, because it's possible that there's more that they're going to tell this season.
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to revise my multiple timeline theory to update for what they're doing this season on Strange New Worlds. But one of the things that I was talking about is changing the main divergence point from the Borg incursion to Khan, and the idea that Khan's the original Khan was that came to power in the 1990s, left in 1996, was found by Kirk, blah, 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 original series. That was the prime timeline that led to TOS Classic Trek. However, a time assassin, whatever you want to call it, prevented that from happening by taking out that Khan. However, time pushes back, right? So there was data collected on that. The genetic samples of Khan were preserved and kept in dry storage. And guess who got a hold of it? A certain Dr. Soong, who at the end of Picard season 2 pulled the files on it. And we actually see that in Picard season 2 in the last episode. And what does he do? He recreates Khan in the mid 21st century and creates baby Khan that we see in Strange New Worlds.
So you really want to give the new you really want to give the Soongs even more to do.
I don't want to, but the problem is it fits too dang well. But the point is,
just pick a different, just pick a different scientist.
Okay, it's already, but the problem is, Darren, it's already happened.
It's all convoluted.
We have the footage of Dr. Soong taking the Khan file.
It's so convoluted.
Okay, so I didn't see all of Picard season 2.
It's in Picard. Yeah, in Picard season 2, Dr. Soong abandons cloning his daughter because he keeps failing, and digs up a file called Project Khan, dated 1996. And this is in 2024.
You know, I also saw another interesting theory. You know how in Picard season 3 they had in the black storage facility supposedly the remains of James T. Kirk. What if? Hold on. What if the James T. Kirk they have is actually the one that we just saw died?
Oh,
yeah. What if it's this new actor? You know, one of his,
that's a possibility.
You know, yeah. So I mean, that way you preserve. You leave Shatner alone.
I'm okay with that. I am okay with that if you bring in him to play, because
hold on. Say that again about Shatner.
No, Shatner's not coming back, Daniel.
No,
Shatner's never coming back.
Shatner's Kirk.
Shatner is never coming back.
No, I know that, but what did he say before?
He said that the remains are not Shatner. That the remains are the guy that's playing Kirk on Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, actually, Michael.
Yeah. So.
I actually had an idea. I had an idea how to make your idea work. That Soong comes on Strange New Worlds, and he does manage to clone his daughter again, and we have like Isa Brion's in one of those dress episodes, like episode 7 of season 1, with the push-up bra. Then it would work. I'd watch that.
Wow, dude.
And then Pillel leaves the Enterprise, and she's replaced by a woman named Raffi, who happens to be from the.
Karen.
Oh God!
I'm gonna kick you off the stream.
God.
No,
Okay. Next is that file. The file that Soon seen we saw in Picard. Do you think Q dropping that game that file?
No. Why would Q give him that? Just shut up.
I'm just making a suggestion.
He just no.
I mean, obviously, the problem that I have is that the reason I like Star Trek Enterprise seasons 1 to 3 is because they had the courage, even though they were a prequel, to introduce new things.
No, I
not
get
just recycle things, but to introduce new races, new people, and not just take things that were done before. And
I liked the first season, most of the episodes. The episode that I think I like the most is the one where it opens with the asteroid that's about to hit the planet. They fire some torpedoes at it, and it raises shields. I thought that was a great,
the first episode of Strange New World.
The second episode.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting one. I think that was controlled by the preservers, by the way.
Yeah. And Pike is like, someone want to tell me how an asteroid puts up a force field? And everybody, that was just a great lead into the opening credits. I thought that was really well done. I think we need. I think maybe, and this is Darren's copium here for this show, is that the reason why the first 3 episodes have seemed so derivative is because they will be showing us something very different and very new later on. In the season.
I doubt it. I strongly doubt anything new will be coming.
Well, of course you doubt it, John, because you're a hater.
I'm
generally not a pessimistic guy, but Secret Hideout, after the whole Discovery thing, they have shown some interest here in writing the ship, no pun intended. So
that's what I've been trying to argue with people about. And even with Darren, I've been, how long have you and I been fighting about this? But it's
300 years now, I think.
Yeah. But the fact that, yes, when Secret Hideout took over Trek, it was a disaster, right? So, we look at their 3 Star Trek films are crappier, and crappiest. And then we have Star Trek Discovery, which is the craptasm of crap, right? And so we're like, okay, Star Trek is, people were just playing out Star Trek is dead at that point. However, starting with season 2 of Discovery, they kept trying to course correct.
Right.
And the key word is trying.
It was, first of all, season 2 of Discovery brought us Anson Mount as Captain Pike, a truly likable character in the midst of the crap show. And Ethan Peck as Spock, who was actually a surprisingly likable version of Spock. And I know, John, you hate, but
I think there's a lot of thematic symbolism to the scene where Pike comes onto the Discovery bridge and immediately wants to know everybody's name, and it was at that point that we actually learned the names of some of these characters, because we never got their names, in the first season, because it was all about Michael Burnham and Lorca, and so that to me was a blatant, okay, let's do this right, and let's figure out who these people are, and at least find out what to call them, because every good Star Trek show, you knew the name of every major character by the end of the pilot,
and most of the minor characters.
If there were any,
like if you're a fan of Star Trek, the original series, you know who Kyle is,
right?
You know
who Rand is.
Yeah, you know who Rand is. So you know who Mbango was. The small players who show up every once in a while.
Riley.
Huh? Riley, yes.
Yeah, and Yeoman,
one more time.
Oh, gosh.
But unfortunately, so even though they were trying to course correct and slowly getting better and better and better, unfortunately, much of the fan base was just so obsessed with the negativity that they couldn't see the small improvements that were taking place. And
wait. Trying to course correct doesn't mean that you course correct. Like the Titanic tried to course correct. It didn't make any difference.
You know what? The thing is, though, John, is it perfection? No. But you know what? You need to praise what's good. And because if you don't,
why?
Because if you don't, and you just want to bitch and moan, then eventually you either get nothing, or they just say, well, the fans don't, the fans are just a bunch of haters, and so we're just going to message and do whatever we want to do. And
let me ask you this question, Ian.
So what? So what?
So you want Star Trek to suck then? That's what you want.
Yeoman
What I want is Star Trek to either be good or not be there.
Well, then praise what's good.
Yeah, but it isn't good.
I wanted the whole thing to burn when I first saw Star Trek Discovery. I wanted it all to be expunged. I wanted Secret Hideout to lose the license so that it would go into somebody else's hands who actually gave a crap. And I think that they've actually found some people, and they're finding more and more people as time goes on that can actually do it. And if they're going to use a time travel gimmick like the temporal Cold War, and it's like to explain away things and try to patch things together, okay, let them do that. Let's see what they come up with.
Let me ask you this then. What's your opinion? How you think it's going to end? How you think the last episode?
I don't know how it's going to end, Chief.
I mean, your opinion. In your opinion, what do you think?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
I will tell you that even if I come up with a great idea and they don't go with that idea, I'm not going to be pissed off. Okay, that's what LDG does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not.
The show is crap. The show is crap if it doesn't adhere to his theories about it.
Yeah, well, LDG is insane. I mean, we know that. Look, I love if you're listening, I love you, buddy, but you are insane. You need you should be locked up in an institution. You are insane.
You know what's funny is talking to LDG sometimes in his underground as we do. It's kind of like that scene from Apocalypse Now where we first actually meet Colonel Kurtz. Marlon Brando's character. He's
Well, LDG even looks and kind of sounds like.
Can I say something?
Sure,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, so like a friend of mine was hanging out with me last weekend, and I was trying to describe what Star Trek was because he's not really a fan. And I started to, he's seen a couple of the movies, but I described that like one of the things I love about Star Trek was how they would come up, like they came up with this vision of the future that Roddenberry had where the Federation is selfless and they're all united. People are the best that they can be. One thing I always loved about Star Trek is the villains they would come up with were antithetical to that vision. You have you have the Klingons and the Romulans initially, and they were just kind of like different versions of humans in some ways in terms of what they wanted. They just wanted power. But when you came up with the Borg, it was like you couldn't reason with them. You couldn't use diplomacy to deal with them. So they were kind of like they were everything that the Federation wasn't. Then you came up with the Dominion, whose weapon was paranoia. Instead of assimilation, they would cause you to second guess yourself. They would cause, unease behind the lines as well as a threat before the line. So they kind of work together. And that's what it's, and the Xindi were like, I know you don't like the Xindi, nobody likes the Xindi, but I like them. I thought they were kind of like squabbling in and of themselves, but they were barely united on this idea that humanity was a threat. They don't, and I just love what I love about Star Trek is how the thematic differences between the villains that we fight and who we are as the Federation was illustrated by that. And I think that's something I really want to tell people when I tell them about Star Trek.
Sure. Let me correct you on one thing, though, Mercer, and you should think about this, actually. When you talk about the Borg are not the antithesis of the Federation. The Borg are actually the ultimate version of the Federation.
Right.
The Borg are the ultimate communists.
They're communist.
And that's why Roddenberry hated the Borg.
Right. Yeah.
No, they're not.
They absolutely are.
That is true.
In the Borg, up until when they introduced the Queen ruined the Borg. But when the Borg were first introduced in their pure form, when we saw them up until First Contact, but everything we saw in Next Generation, there was no hierarchy. Everyone was equal. Everyone was treated the same. And everyone was rewarded the same for their work. Everyone had an equal share in everything. Nobody owned anything. Everyone owned everything. The Borg are absolute communists.
Do you want to get an earful on how stupid that is?
I don't call that communism. I don't call that
communism.
Hold on.
They're purists. They're pure.
It's
they have different definitions for words like communism over in Europe. I've noticed this. But Sargon of Akkad did a whole bunch of videos where he talked about the Borg and what they were in comparison to the Federation. And Michael just.
Let's just talk about.
But I don't want to talk about that fucking shit right now. Okay.
I want to talk about reality, the real world, not some made-up stuff. Communism was made up by some 19th century book writer, and it has nothing.
I don't care who made it up. I'm just talking about what it is, and the thing is,
and it's not
what it is in theory rather than in practice. Is what
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the Soviet. I'm not talking about the Soviet Union, and I'm not talking about China. I'm talking about the Borg. I wasn't trying to examine
the Borg in that way. I was simply saying that one thing that makes Star Trek great was that the villains they came up with found different ways of countering not just weapons and stuff, but countering the philosophies that we think we got in as a Federation.
Well, but the problem is that the Borg were the natural conclusion of the Federation.
No, they were machines.
No, they were not.
They absolutely were. The Federation believed in this collectivist philosophy.
High-tech ants trying
to
the Federation is a post-scarcity liberal utopia, whereas the Borg were a communist utopia, and that's
the Borg were not communist.
They are the ultimate expression of communism once it's
no, they're not.
Out. Yes, they are.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Absolutely, they are.
No, they're not.
Ants.
Absolutely, they are.
That's factually wrong. That's just complete nonsense.
No, it's not. Not according to the
complete nonsense.
Not according to interrupting me isn't going to change this. Okay, not according to the actual tenets of communism, which has never been adhered to by a human government so far. But if you take all of their tenets and you carry them out, that's what you'll end up with.
Making stuff up is not going to change that it's made up.
He's not making stuff
You're just saying, yes, Darren he is.
I are just going by the facts, and you just asserting differences.
I am going by the facts, and you are just making shit up. You're just randomly making shit up.
Hold on, John. I actually listed off tenets of communism. All you did is say you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. What
because
tenets of communism am I wrong about?
They're not the Borg.
That's not a tenet of communism. What tenet of communism specifically am I wrong about?
Communism is not machines that think as one.
No. That's
cosmetic. That's cosmetic.
Yeah, that's purely cosmetic. What tenet of communism was I wrong about, John?
Oh boy.
It's just ridiculous. I'm sorry.
No. It's not.
We're talking about the Borg.
Yes, we are talking about the Borg,
right?
Which are not equal individuals, but which are a hive mind.
Hold on. Everyone in the Borg collective is equal,
but not an individual.
Right, but individuality isn't part of the tenets of communism.
Yeah, individuality is
not individual.
It is a necessary tenet of individuality.
It is not a necessary tenet of communism.
Yes, it is. Because
equality is a necessary tenet of communism.
Because
not
communism is based on humanity, in which everybody is an individual.
Based on individuality.
Yes,
communism
it is.
Denies humanity.
No, it doesn't.
You cannot have individuality in a communist system. You can't.
You always have individuality in a system based on human beings, because
that's why biologically, John. That is why communism always fails, because
communism
you can't take individuality out of human beings completely. You're exactly right. You can't take individuality out of human beings. That is why communism always fails. That's why every single communist system that has ever been tried has not been a pure communist system, and why it always ends up corrupted. It's why communism is doomed to failure 100% of the time.
With humans in mind. I mean, what the fuck? Oh, what kind of alternate reality are we in?
John. Okay. When we saw the Borg, they act as one, they think as one, they talk as one. There was one. Yeah, one. What you see in communists, especially early 1967 Russians, what they always wanted. They wanted the country to be one, control this one, control the state, control the people, control
I've been there, you
press.
idiot.
Yeah, the control the press.
And it's a fact.
And have no freedom.
You have to have control in order to have communism. You can't.
I have literally been there.
Then it's a fact.
Then I know.
Oh, he froze.
He's freezing up. Okay, freeze up.
Hopefully, hold on. We'll give him a minute. Hopefully, John comes back. Okay. I hope he's not just so angry that the German internet exploded.
Well, John's pretty young. How old was he when the Berlin Wall fell? He couldn't have been that old.
I was going to say the same. I was going to say that. Remember how the Berlin Wall was a checkpoint Charlie.
Here's the problem, though. It's that so in a sense, and hopefully, I don't know if John can hear us right now. I hope he can. But in a sense, the Borg are also a pure democracy, because remember, Picard even said he remembered everything that happened. Everyone's brain is plugged into the collective. It's just that the collective is so overwhelming that your individual thoughts don't change anything, because it's all the will of the collective whole. And so your thoughts are one small, tiny part of a collective of trillions of drones.
Yeah, that's why I kind of asked the question. Right. If he was connected to all of them, how come you didn't find out how they were created? That's what.
Because one human brain cannot absorb all that information.
They were also potentially compartmentalized. But the other thing, the thing that gets me about this was, if you remember the episode about Hugh, where they decided not to put essentially a computer virus in Hugh, they decided, well, when he plugs back into the collective, he'll send a jolt of individuality throughout the Borg collective. I'm like, well, why didn't that work when you got assimilated?
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
I was saying that when that show aired, I was saying that. I'm like, well, this is stupid. You just got assimilated. The thing that
every single person they assimilate would do that.
Yeah, okay, let me make sure this. Okay, when 7 and 9 was she part of the? When she always saying she was Unimatrix 1-0, whatever they call it. Then when she was upper epsilon kind of thing.
She was a tertiary, which meant she was at the third level. Tertiary adjunct to Unimatrix.
Unimatrix 01.
Yeah, but tertiary means third level.
That's just a designation for where her station was. That
probably, yeah.
But the thing is, and remember, and again, I wish John hadn't had the whatever problem and disconnected. But what happened to 7 when she disconnected? She longed to go back.
Exactly.
It's not like it was torturous for people. Jean-Luc felt horrible, but that's because he was an elder man when he was assimilated. She was assimilated as a little girl, grew up in the collective, and when she was disconnected, it was like, oh no, my home, I want to go back. I got to go back. To her, the communistic utopia is beautiful.
It's like that. That's like that movie Conan. You remember Conan when he got free? He told me he was free. He said no, he was like a wild animal. Wanted to go back. No, he couldn't take the freedom. Conan, you remember Conan?
Conan?
Yeah, Conan. You remember seeing Conan?
No. You get the line was that his handler decided to free him because he had been like an animal that had been caged too long.
Yeah,
and that's why he let him go. But that is totally different than what we're talking about.
Okay.
A better example would be a better example would be Man of Steel when at the end when Superman destroys the final Kryptonian ship, the one that had the ability to terraform Earth, and Zod is in the middle of partially destroyed Metropolis, and he's got dust in his hands. He goes, "We could have made a new Krypton out of the squalor." He says, "My purpose is to serve Krypton. That is the reason for which I was created, to defend my people, and now I have no people. That's what you've taken from me, my soul. The idea was that the Kryptonians were created to serve the society. And of course, Superman was not. He was created by natural birth, and
right. Superman had free will, which Zod did not.
Which did not, because Zod was designed genetically to fulfill a certain role in the society, which he could no longer fulfill, and that's why he went in berserk at the end and wanted to die. And so it's that's an example of what we're talking about. Not
when Conan, remember you were young. What,
are you talking about Conan the Barbarian?
Yeah,
talking about Conan the Barbarian. Yeah.
Okay. See, I don't give a crap about Conan the Barbarian, so that's why.
And it's a non sequitur. The themes in Conan the Barbarian have nothing to do with the Borg.
No, I'm talking about
there's no communism in the Conan the Barbarian. There's no communism.
Hold on, John Gill's back.
When he was set free, yes, he was reluctant
Buddy,
to go.
You survived. We thought that your rage broke the internet in Germany.
Yes, it did. That's just amazing fucking timing for my internet.
That's all right, man. I felt so bad. We were just getting into it. No,
perfect timing.
So hear me out for a second, okay? Before you rage, hear me out for a second, okay?
Okay, I'll rage after you're finished.
Okay. Within the Borg Collective, it's a perfect democracy because every single brain is connected to the collective and has equal representation. But everybody is connected, and that's trillions of people, which means that your vote means very little. It's the collective whole that makes the decision. That's why Picard was conscious of everything that happened. He was aware, he was awake, but he was also connected to the collective. Every Borg has equal representation. Every Borg has an equal percentage of ownership of the collective. And every Borg is treated with equal rights. Every Borg is equally rewarded for everything that they get. And unlike in any kind of capitalist culture or any other type of social economic system, that truly is equitable for all Borg. Every single Borg is treated equally. Every single Borg is, in fact, given their share based on their labor. And every single Borg's labor is equal. And so there is, it is truly a communist utopia. Now, you could argue all you want about, but they're collecting, they're all connected to these cybernet. Well, that's all the sci-fi junk that makes it possible. And that's part of the problem, is that a true communist utopia is not possible and maintain humanity. That's the problem with communism.
Hold
on. This is for John, not so John, you may respond and rage out all you want. Just try not to break your internet again.
I'll try. Hopefully it stays on. Yeah, as someone who has had half his family across the border, and known the real world thing, as opposed to Americans who just read theory and just make stuff up.
I don't just make stuff up. Now, come on, be
yes,
fair.
You do. No, I am fair.
You see, that's the problem. Hold on.
I
gotta stop you right there, because that is complete BS for someone to say something like that, because you're just because you can argue that I just, you can say, well, you just read theory because I haven't experienced it firsthand. Fine. That's a fair argument if you want to say, well, you've experienced it and I haven't. I can accept that. But for you to say, oh, you're just making stuff up. No, I'm going to call BS on you and say that's an ad hominem attack and you are full of crap for saying that. So no, you cannot say that. All right.
Yes, I'd say that when you say that's an ad hominem attack and I am full of crap, I say that's an ad hominem attack and you are full of crap, because I am telling you, you
it's
are
not an
making
ad
stuff
hominem
up.
attack to
Literally.
say it's an ad hominem attack. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
No, it
You
is
are
not.
literally making
You don't
stuff
know what
up.
an ad hominem attack is if you think suggesting something is an ad hominem attack
Just
is
let
an
him
ad hominem.
You are
explain why.
literally making stuff up. That's a fact. That's not an attack.
No, I
That's
am
a
not
fact.
making stuff up.
That is
Everything
a fact.
I stated about the Borg Collective is factual, and everything.
Wait a minute.
I
If it was
stated
factual, then
comparing
the
it-
Borg would not want to dominate other species.
and
If-
everything I stated,
No.
comparing
If
it to
what you were
communist
saying,
theory
if every
is
Borg had an
factual.
equal vote, if every Borg had an equal vote, they wouldn't vote to like kill people that they knew or peace-loving planets. They would probably say, "Hey, we'll leave you alone because you're not harming
the Borg
anybody."
aren't. No, you see, that's the problem, Mercer. You're assuming. Like, here's the problem. There are trillions of Borg, right?
Yeah,
Trillions.
but most of them don't want to cause
Hold on.
trouble.
We can't. A human being can't even comprehend a number like a trillion. And I mean that's a multitude of Earth's population.
Well, I can't comprehend a trillion people wanting to just destroy every planet that's inferior.
It doesn't take
reason.
a trillion. It takes half a trillion plus one.
I don't agree though. I don't agree.
But here's
you didn't listen to what the Borg wanted. The Borg wanted to add
Mercer.
everyone's distinctiveness.
Mercer, you gotta let me finish. Here's the problem with what you're saying. So let's say you have peace-loving planet Alderaan, right? Alderaan's never hurt anybody. There's nobody's. They're just minding their own business, and the Borg come along. Do we want to assimilate them? So the Borg in the local area are like, well, these guys are nice. They've never harmed us. We don't want to hurt them, right? So they're all saying, no, we don't really want to do that. However, does the entire collective feel that way? No, because you know what? The further away you are from something, the less you give a crap about it. Because you know what? How many Americans right now think about the fact that their smartphone is made by slave labor? None. Do you give a crap about it? Does anybody give a crap about it? They'll say they do, but guess what? They still have a smartphone.
Big problem.
And so I'm sorry. Hold on. So you're still supporting it. You're still spending your money on it, and so so you're still perfectly willing to support the companies that are sending kids to the cobalt mines. All right. So, and if that's okay with you, fine. But don't tell me that the collective is just going to be a bunch of peaceniks going, oh, kumbaya, we don't want to hurt Alderaan because they're nice people.
Big problem. If you don't care, why would you want to destroy them?
They don't want to destroy them. That's the thing. The Borg don't want to destroy anybody. Remember, the Borg consider assimilation an upgrade for anybody they assimilate. They even say so.
Okay,
did you not watch Best of Both Worlds?
Yeah, but that contradicts what you just said a few seconds ago. If the ones that are far away and they are the majority, they don't care. Why would they want to assimilate that?
I'm gonna go bye-bye.
All right, I'm gonna wrapping up in a few anyway, Darren. But hey, you have a good one.
Okay, but once they said when they want to jump off the bridge, where y'all want to jump off, they still that's still connected to that individual.
The only way, the problem is that that's a misnomer as far as like I know that they snuck in the regenerative cycle because they had to come up with some way to stop the cube because they wrote themselves into a corner. But as far as the way that the collective operates, they think that everybody should be Borg because their life is perfection.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Seven of Nine, when she was removed from the collective, immediately wanted to go back to the collective.
Yeah,
and she wanted to go back to the collective for some time after being removed.
Yeah, but okay, someone of color. No, I'm not trying to say the S word. No, but what I was trying to talk about Conan. What I was trying to say was, he was kidnapped at a young age, grown into slavery, everything, fighting everything. He got used to it. Then when he set free, he didn't want to live because he didn't know anything else.
It's not. They're not slaves, though. The collective are not slaves.
I know that,
and that's something that a lot of people.
Yeah, but they they don't have that free will. I mean, I can't. Okay, if I want to collect this alcohol, I want to get him to leave.
You have your thoughts, and you simply and everybody. That's the thing. It's kind of interesting the way that works, and you see that, by the way, in Prodigy. You do have your individual thoughts. You just don't have the ability to control your
Ultrametric.
Huh?
We saw that in Ultrametric episode with Voyager.
Your what?
Oh, it was episode Voyager.
So I don't think they have votes. I don't think they have votes. I think their opinions get suppressed by the collective.
If that were true, because here's the problem with that, Mercer. Their opinions are the collective.
Yeah, I know that, but
their opinions aren't suppressed by the collective because their opinions are the collective. The collective is the opinions of all of them put together, including like if you're in the Borg collective, your opinion is a part of the collective. And so the problem is that the only way the Borg change their attitude about something is if they assimilate enough people that are like-minded that don't like what the Borg are doing. But that's never going to happen because there's too many people that are already part of the collective that do like it. And over time, they realize how great it is to be a Borg because everybody is treated equally as a Borg and they all think that their communist utopia is great.
And I always got the impression before first contact that you lose all sense of yourself. You're not. You're alive.
Not what Picard said.
What's that?
That is not what Picard said.
Okay. There was episode.
Well, because he was treated differently.
And it's not what Seven said.
He was Locutus. He was treated differently.
Not what Seven said.
I don't really
watch entire life in the collective.
Speaking on Seven. Speaking of Seven. The episode when Neelix asks Seven, how come they didn't assimilate their race? And she said they were lower form or something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, if they want perfection, they mean everyone has to be part of that class.
Because they wanted to the idea that at that point in Voyager, and this was after they introduced the Queen and kind of ruined the whole thing.
Yeah, I know that.
But that in Voyager, they got the idea that not just the Borg weren't just elevating everybody that they assimilated, that the Borg were trying to elevate themselves, that the Borg were trying to become perfection as opposed to trying to help everybody.
I'm not dismissing what you're saying, but I also don't fully agree with it. I'd have to think about it. I'd have to sleep on it and watch it. I haven't watched much of it.
What I would recommend is watch particularly Best of Both Worlds and listen carefully to Locutus's speeches that he gives when he's in sick bay.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I'll have to watch it again.
Listen very carefully to the words he says. And then listen to what Picard says after they unplug.
But then again, Locutus might be a special case because he was allowed to be given this idea of being their
right. But his whole point is that he's speaking for the Borg, and that he is, and the Borg have no reason to lie because if they can take the Federation by force, if they want to destroy the Federation, all they have to do is send a dozen cubes in. And they can wipe the Federation.
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't do that. Yeah, it don't make no damn sense.
They didn't want to take the Federation by force. They want to assimilate the Federation.
Well, here's the thing. What I was trying to say earlier was that I'm not talking necessarily in universe. I'm talking about when the writers came up with the Borg, or when they came up with the Dominion, or when they came up with the Xindi. I like the idea that they're trying to find ways to put the philosophy to a test. That's by
right. That's why Gene Roddenberry hated the Borg, because he felt that they were challenging his utopian concept.
Right. Yeah, that's what I liked about the different villains that they've come up with in Star Trek. It's not just like, oh, these are good guys and bad guys. There is something philosophically diametric or opposing about these different villains that they've come up with. I really love the paranoia thing that the Dominion had. The idea of making people second guess everything and trying to wonder who's infiltrating them and who's spying on them. That was great. trying to get different races to fight each other because they don't know what's real. That's always great.
Right. And and by the way, another thing I would watch is Q-Who, the first episode where the Borg appear. And listen carefully to what Troy says about the Borg when she feels their presence.
Okay, let me see this. Okay, let me see this in. Okay, I agree with some part of what you said, but the thing is, okay, they failed at Warp 359. I mean, at Warp 9, assimilate the Borg. I mean, conquer Earth, get Earth. They didn't send 1,000 ships like you said. They should have sent more than one ship. But when we saw Voyager, when he's going against 8473, they sent what 15 ships and 26 tries to get these people. They could have done that right there. But
but the Borg at that point against 8472, the Borg were fighting a war against a species that was their tactical superior.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
As opposed to they were trying to assimilate a species that was their tactical inferior. There's a big difference there. They thought that they could, if they sent a single cube to Earth and they assimilate Earth, then they can spread out from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But 8472 can blow up Borg cubes like they were popcorn.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
All right. So,
do you think they can still do that?
Well, yeah. Why not?
No, because the Borg would adapt.
But
the Borg never adapted to 8472's weapons.
Yeah.
At the time, but now I'm talking about
they never showed any sign of adapting, and they took hits from those weapons dozens of times. The way that the Borg are, if they were going to adapt, they would have. Now, the interesting, here's the theory that I heard about that, and I think this is true, is that no matter how good you are at adapting, and the Borg are obviously very good at adapting, we know this, and part of it comes from the fact that with the collective hive mind that they have, they're hyper intelligent, and so they can quickly analyze and come up with a creative defense as far as modulating their shields or doing whatever they need to do to create a defense for whatever you're trying to do to them. But that being said, no matter how good you are, no matter how creative you can be with modulating your shields or doing whatever you want to do, there's only so much power that a single cube can generate, and there's only so much power that a single cube can repel. And those bioships can fire a weapon that, with a dozen bioships combined, literally blows up a planet.
Can we just wrap up this subject with Michael providing an actual source for Gene Roddenberry hating the Borg because they reminded him too much of his vision of the Federation? Because that sounds like totally made up crap. Like,
no,
can you drop a link, please?
No matter what I cite, you're just going to say I made up crap. So I'm
if you drop a link with an actual source.
Handy. I didn't. You know what? I didn't come to the show with notes on the Borg and communism because I wasn't planning on talking.
Are you going to make another simple timeline
you can
theory?
Provide any evidence for it
at the end of the season. But John, I was not planning on talking about this subject today, so no, I don't have any notes handy. Sorry.
Yeah, but you know me, you know I'll be back. So
if I get a chance, I will. You know what? I have so much stuff on my plate. I literally, you know what? I spent today. I'm not kidding. Today I watched at this just purely for research purposes. I watched Arena, and then The Time Trap. And then In a Mirror Darkly, Part 1 and Part 2, and then the 2 Gorn episodes of Strange New Worlds, just so that I could watch every single Star Trek episode with the Gorn in it before this live stream.
Yes.
And so because I knew people were going to fight about the Gorn, and I wanted to be able to say I knew I had every single Gorn episode freshly watched, because people were going to say, well, what about this? but of course, then nobody wants to talk about the Gorn because people are jerks.
Well, it makes you
So
one
yeah,
more question.
we are probably going to do this for years. So at some point, if you find the source,
At some
that
point,
Gene Roddenberry-
I'll find it. But yes, Gene
Yeah.
Roddenberry did not like the Borg. It was unfortunately, it's not like a video clip. It was like all from interviews of people that said, "Oh yeah, you know, Gene didn't like this." But the you know, Gene himself didn't say it because, of course, people don't say negative things about themselves. What are we trying to say, Chief?
Let me make sure this in. You know, spike all the different boards or their writing where it is. Do you think Earth should have been assimilated a long time ago? Because
Well, okay. So if you mean in universe, if the Borg invaded the Federation, should the Federation have been able to stop them? No. Based on what we saw of Borg capabilities, the fact that the Enterprise stopped them was basically plot
too many
armor.
times.
Unrealistic.
Yeah, completely unrealistic that they stopped them.
Yeah,
It was just pure unadulterated plot armor.
Yeah. I mean,
every single time the Borg are stopped, except for in regeneration, I would say was plot armor.
Okay, so they should have lost the war. And they should have, everybody be assimilated and not pro look because one thing I know that they have so Voyager when
don't even get me started about Voyager.
I know, but the scene where Q is on Q and his son, and he was angry by his son, keep saying don't mess with the Borg.
Don't provoke the Borg.
Yeah, don't provoke war, which I still think he got some part of that of Borg creation or something because you that powerful, but you gonna tell your own son don't provoke him? Do you mean something?
Okay, there's two things there. First of all, and I've said this a million times before, and I get sick of people thinking that Q is some kind of god. Q is not
that's
that.
What I'm saying,
powerful.
Yeah,
Q is not nearly as powerful as people make him out to be.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
All right, so he is powerful. He's much more powerful than a normal human being, but he is not a god. He is not, he's not like even as powerful as a Metron or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah.
He is. He can affect things locally. He can travel through time, which is very, very potent, and things that he can do. But he is, for all intents and purposes, a basic humanoid creature, which and we know in part because of his very first appearance, he was scared by a phaser. All right, when an ensign drew a phaser on him, he instinctively defended himself, and when Picard mentioned that the phaser was set to stun, he was like, "Hey, you know how humans are. Would you be caught helpless by them?" Which implies that if he had hit him with a phaser set to stun, it would have worked.
Like the one rule of thumb that everybody should remember was that Deanna Troi could feel Q, but she could not feel the Borg.
Right.
So there's a difference there.
So all that being said, when Q said don't provoke the Borg, I think it's because the Q continuum are on a constant high-level alert, thinking if the Borg ever assimilate a Q, that's bad news.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that would give the
Or it could be just a joke. It could have been just a joke the writers put in.
But I do think. Well, I you know what? I think that it was more than just a joke. I think that I mean, yes, as far as the writers, it was just a joke, but it's still canon. And so we gotta, but looking at it from just being hyper analytical, which I tend to be.
But we also
that's why we're here, Salty. Like Obi-Wan would say, that's why I'm here.
That's why we're here.
The Attack of the Clones, and he's like, well, you're here to get the clones. You're like, that's why I'm here.
And how would I compare the Borg to the Cylons? There is no comparison. The Borg are cyborgs. The Cylons are robots. They're completely different.
Okay. But also when he said in that same episode, he saved Earth twice. thanks to him.
Who?
Q.
What?
What's the episode? We talked when we had a trial. He said that he have saved Earth twice from the Borg.
So
I think it was once. I think it was once or twice. Yeah, I think. So you think that? I think that you're absolutely right. I think it's somehow connected some way because they are very powerful.
Well, like I said, if a Borg got close enough to a Q to get his nanites in him, the Q would be assimilated. And if a Q were assimilated, he could then teleport to the continuum and start assimilating other Q.
Oh.
And if all the Q were assimilated, then the Borg would have the ability to put a Q on every cube. A Q on every cube. Wow.
Are they corporeal beings?
And
they're corporeal beings.
Huh?
The Q are not even corporeal beings.
Yes, they are. They absolutely are. I mean, like you can't. You have to understand. Q can be stunned by a regular old phaser. Q is a corporeal, normal being. He just has the ability to do things that normal people can't do.
Remember, he got hit by Cisco, so he said he felt it.
Yeah,
so.
Cisco punched him and knocked his butt on the ground.
Yeah.
So
I think they got limits. I think they got limits.
He can change his shape, but that doesn't change the fact that he is a corporeal being. He's not indestructible.
Yeah. I think they got limits. Some limits they can't go for.
He can use his powers to do amazing things and create the appearance of godlike power, but he is definitely not indestructible. If you catch a Q unaware, he is as frail as any other humanoid.
That's why I said earlier, Mercer, when Q was yelling at his son, when he told his son, "Don't provoke the void," something right there scared them.
Right, and so yeah, but if if every cube had a Q on it, then the cubes could literally teleport around the galaxy. Could you imagine what kind of damage they could do then?
Yeah,
and then they could teleport to other galaxies.
Yeah,
and then
the
Borg would literally just become a virus infecting the entire universe.
Yeah, and plus the knowledge they have. I don't know how old the Q are.
And so, Eric, I think the Cylons live in a utopia. Up until the Great Civil War, yes.
Are you talking about the original?
So I can say that.
If you talking about the original or the reboot?
The reboot, obviously.
Okay.
The original, the Cylons are just mindless robots that follow a lizard man.
I thought they were original. They killed their creator, and
but the Imperious leader is actually a lizard man.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That same guy who played in.
Is there a connection between the V and the original Battlestar Galactica?
What was that?
Is there a connection between V and Battlestar Galactica?
V.
No. V and I don't think
V.
So.
No. Total different show.
Hey, wait a minute.
Species.
The Gorn. Going back to the Gorn. One of them.
The Gorn and V.
Yeah, no. One of the Gorn appeared in Empire Strikes Back as a character named Bosk.
Yeah, Bosk is a Gorn. And Bosk does look kind of like he's a very scrawny Gorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his face looks very similar. Like it's not that different.
But Princess Leia is a Breen.
Yeah, Princess Leia is a Breen and Bosk is a Gorn. I think that there's definitely some crossover potential there.
Yeah, that's Star Trek crossover. Yeah, there's been 3 Star Trek crossover in Star Wars. In the original, when Luke Skywalker was in that the episode 1, they briefly talking about Starfleet. They say about Starfleet right there. I think it was another episode. They talk about what was it? Transport, something like that. It was 2, but it was Star Trek crossover on that. But we didn't see anything like that. Star Wars and Star Trek crossover. You remember? And
it's Chief Cook. He rambles about weird stuff, so you got.
No, I'm talking about. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we know. You're just saying.
Okay.
It's okay. We'll let you just say. All right. So with that, remember, you are the salt of the earth. John
True,
Gill
untrue.
is very, very grumpy, but we love him. Darren Wagner is still the biggest jerk I know, and he's not here, so he can't defend himself.
And I don't love Case McFadden.
You know, remember, if you haven't heard already, Danny is having a rough night because of,
and we wish him the best.
Yeah.
We wish him the best.
So if you're a believer, please pray for him. If you're not a believer, just give him good thoughts. And you know, so but yeah, so keep Danny in your thoughts, and hopefully he'll be feeling better tomorrow. And so, Ben, yeah, did I say I'm the salty tracker yet? I am the salty tracker.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, okay, I did say that. And Chief,
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I am.
Oh,
I've been
God.
pretty salty tonight.
Yeah.
It's been a very salt filled night, and so
it's Friday.
It's definitely was Friday. It was a good salty.
It's
salty
actually
Friday.
Saturday.
Well, it is Saturday. About 13 minutes
Oh.
into Saturday, even for
Thank
me.
you for the
13.
discussion.
Yeah. So,
Thank you
but
for the discussion. I really
oh
like
no,
it.
absolutely, Mercer, and thank you. You brought up a couple of good points. I think it was a very lively discussion. Thank you, John. I appreciate you coming on. Darren, if you do see this, all kidding aside, thank you. You actually brought in some really good points. I still really wish Professor Brainy Specs would come up on the panel one of these times.
Yeah, come on, Brainy.
He's a smart guy. I have nothing but respect for him, but he's just, you know,
yes, Brainy, come on up.
And he disagrees with me. And that's what I want. I want people that disagree with me.
Part of what I love about movies is that they're not perfect. You know, like Star Trek, no matter how much you try to line up everything, there's going to be imperfections. There's going to be little things about it that are never going to work. But that's part of the charm.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, when we do these live streams, here's what I like. I like intellectual sparring. But you know what I don't like is I want intellectual sparring with people who, you know, I want to punch above my weight class. That's why I like sparring with people like Darren, you know, because Darren's a really smart guy, right? And so I feel like I'm punching above my weight class when I'm fighting with Darren. Same thing with Professor Brainy Specs. He's a really smart guy. So I feel like I'm punching above my weight class when I'm fighting with Professor Brainy Specs. You know, with Chief Cook, I feel like, you know, it's unfair. I'm just beating up a little kid. You know, it's not fair. It's just wrong. Like,
He should, if he brought the Gates McFadden on with him on the stream.
Yeah, I'm getting into a boxing ring, and I look like Mike Tyson, and I get in the ring, and in the other corner is like a 3-year-old. And it's kind of a fat 3-year-old that just ate a gallon of ice cream and really needs to go to the bathroom, you know. And it's like, it's not, it's not.
You really want to start